Got me feeling important. That's a long round of applause right there.
I know. Hey, y'all are special tonight, right?
Standing ovation.
Hey, you're worth it tonight because this is going to be one hell of a conversation. So, welcome to the Palace. How's everybody doing in the chat? Y'all make sure you check in, say hello, show some love. Let us know where you're checking in from. That's really important. And thank you all for being here tonight. And for those of you who are just tuning in, and if you are new to the channel, welcome. I am Queen Sheba. I cover a variety of hot topics specific to reality television, but most importantly, I hone in on the psychological and the behavioral traits of the Black experience. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Palace. And as you can see tonight, we have a well-rounded panel. Lots of thought leadership here tonight on the panel. And I am looking forward to the dialogue, and I hope you are too. Shout out to my moderators in the chat. Thank you all for holding it down. We want to ask that everybody be respectful. Ask questions if you have it. But most importantly, remember where you are. So wipe your feet at the door. Remember, you are in the palace. So keep it respectful. And it doesn't hurt that these are all beautiful Black men, both inside and out, on the panel. And each and every one of these gentlemen, they were handpicked for this panel because this conversation is a must-have. It's been long overdue. And without further delay, I would like to introduce them one by one. We have Big Lou, yes, from Love and Marriage Huntsville. We have Samson from Ready to Love. We have Trill in the house from Cruise Season. We have Tony Massey, executive chef. We have Jackson, military background. He's going to bring his thought leadership in this conversation today. We have Bethel Johnson, former NFL player. And most importantly, and last but not least, we have Chauncey Franks, spiritual coach to TCU football team. Gentlemen, welcome. How are you doing tonight?
Good.
Doing very well.
Are y'all ready?
Of course.
Yes,
Of course.
Ready as ever.
Definitely ready. Thank you.
Well, don't be shy. So let me just check in with you one by one because some of you are new here. And I just want to give you the opportunity to give the audience just a little bit about who you are and what they can expect from you tonight. So Trill, give the audience a little bit of background about who you are and what you do.
My name is Trill. Some call me AC. I'm originally from Port Arthur, Texas, man. Accountant by day, podcaster by night. That sounds crazy to say, but that's the era we in. Salute to the gang, man. Cruise Season. We on all platforms. Y'all check us out. Instagram, all streaming platforms, dropping every Tuesday, and providing amazing live streams on YouTube every Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m. Central, man. See y'all there. Appreciate the opportunity, Queen, as always. Love.
Absolutely. Tony, introduce yourself to the panel, to the audience, and let them know who you are.
Well, my name is Tony Massey. I'm a personal chef, a writer, a poet, a speaker. Actually, since you said we could do it, I have a book on Amazon. Actually, I have 3 books: Unsolicited Dating Advice from an Unqualified Source. Check me out on Amazon. Please support. I'm just really excited about this conversation and excited about the platform and really excited about sharing the stage with such an illustrious panel. So I just can't wait to get started. You can find me at Tony Massey Cooks on all platforms: YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram.
Thank you for that. And if my moderators could track that link down on Amazon and place that link to the book so that the audience can go and pick that up now, that would be wonderful. We have Jackson in the building. Jackson, tell the audience who you are.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Ron Jackson. I go by last name. About 30 years of civil service experience, 20 years in the military, 10 years in law enforcement. Served on the SWAT team, about 8 years in law enforcement. I'm currently enrolled in Morehouse College online, pursuing my bachelor's in business admin. At probably the ground level of starting my business up, I have a love for barbecue. So I'm brisket. Brisket is my number one, my go-to in terms of the grill. So actually a toothless brisket pit. So tender you don't need teeth. So yeah. So that's just a little bit about me, So yeah, I look forward. I I'm very flattered for being invited to the group, and look forward to sharing time with the gentleman and you, Queen, tonight.
Absolutely. And I've seen your brisket before, so he ain't lying, y'all. It's the real deal. We got Bethel Johnson in the house. I actually went to high school with Bethel, but I'm going to hold back. I'm going to let this speak for himself.
My name is Bethel Johnson. Played in the NFL. From there, I'm a private investment banker now. What we do is fund projects all over the world. So you may see these things, but you don't know it's us that's doing it. But my group and I, we all look the same, and we do things that the big guys do, and we just do it all over the world privately, under the radar. Because again, when you look like us, you got to stay private until you can emerge. Once you build it out well enough where it stands on its own, but we've done pretty well with what we do. We privately fund a lot of things that you've seen, but just didn't know it was us. So I'm excited to be on the show, especially with these guys. And I'm gonna call her Queen, but I know her. I went to high school with her, so I'm gonna call her Queen today. But I'm glad that she reached out to me to be a part of this panel.
And thank you for accepting. I really appreciate it. Chauncey, give the audience a little bit of background about who you are.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, really excited here. Chauncey Franks. I am from the big city of Lockhart, Texas. Jackson, that's the barbecue capital of Texas, man. So I'm a barbecue connoisseur myself. Man, I've been married of 18 years. Got 3 beautiful kids that keep us super busy. 2 English bulldogs that, man, you may hear snoring at my feet. So I'll keep it muted. But I work on the campus of TCU. I'm a character coach, pastor, life coach. Spend a lot of time teaching leadership to the young man there. Spend a lot of time coaching the coaches, helping them as they are pouring themselves back into the student athletes. And so I see my role is to pour back into them as they are emptying themselves out. So super excited about this very important conversation, and looking forward to learning from everyone tonight.
And I gotta brag, because I'm a brag. Every time I remember something about each and every one of you, I know y'all are being humbled, but his wife is also a medical doctor. So we all went to college together. So he held that little part back. So I want you all to see how well-rounded this panel is and how qualified they are to speak on this issue tonight. All right. Big Lou, you have quite a fan base on my channel, honey. They have been harassing me all week about you. I'm going to pause. The floor is yours.
Well, Queen, number one, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Louis Whitlow. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I currently stay in Huntsville, Alabama now. I went to Alabama A&M, graduated, went out to get my master's degree at Florida Tech, Florida Institute of Technology. Came back to Huntsville, worked for pretty much about 20 years in the corporate HR side. After that period of time, I felt like I was working for the man, for the system, as we say, and realized that I could do better for myself. So I took advantage of the opportunity. My wife now at the time, was my woman. We were going through some things and we were looking to build, and we felt like building for ourselves was the time for us to build for ourselves. So we took a pause. We reset. It wasn't an easy process. But we definitely have rebuilt and we developed ourselves into some great entrepreneurs that have worked with some very fascinating startups, but also have developed ourselves to where we have the compound now. I have the compound as a sports performance facility for youth athletes. That's where I coach at. But I'm also a coach at Alabama A&M as well, too. I'm the pitching coach there. I just started that new chapter about 3 months ago. We just got through the fall. I'm just thankful, honestly, man. It's just one of those things where when you truly are following your passion, you allow things to fall where they may be. And I'm just thankful to be working with young men.
Thank you for that beautiful background. I said everybody here is qualified to speak on their lives because they started from the bottom. Now they're here. Yes. But I also want to give a shout out to Tiffany Whitlow because she is in the building backing her man up, stride for stride, toe for toe.
Hey, definitely can't forget about that one. Appreciate that, Queen. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. She's here. She's also a reality star on the OWN network of Love and Marriage Huntsville. And last but not least, Samson. Now, you know, the ladies, I'm not going to even talk. Let me just give you the floor. The ladies love you on my page. Tell them a little bit about who you are and what you hope to bring to this conversation tonight.
Thank you for having me, Queen. My name is Samson Daryivala. I also hail from Texas, I'm from Houston specifically. Graduate of Morehouse College. Degrees are in psychology and Spanish with an emphasis on business. Been in federal service for 18 years now. Just recently started picking up life coaching and mentoring. Real simple on my side. Just want to give back to those who are less fortunate, may not have opportunities, teaching them effective communication and why that matters, teaching them how to resolve conflicts in a different way that's probably different from their norm. Also, I like to speak about stocks and real estate, the whole 40 acres and a mule philosophy that Spike Lee started. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be a part of this panel. Seems like these introductions make me feel less than. So I'm looking forward to learning. That's what I'm here for.
And we're happy to have you. So we're just going to jump right in. And fresh off the block, Trill, I'm coming in for you hot and heavy. So Trill, you founded the cruise season and you engage different men quite often. What are some areas you feel like Black men have an opportunity to improve on and or become better?
I would say just expressing ourselves in general. I think, most men, especially Black men, are raised to kind of be emotionless robots. It's absolutely necessary sometimes to survive the environments that we in, you know what I'm saying? But it can work to a detriment within our relationship, you know what I'm saying? So I think part of the mission with Cruise Season is just to make men feel a bit more comfortable, having conversations that, they're not used to having, and letting them know that, hey, y'all not the only one going through that, man. There's a lot of men out here that's struggling to express ourselves, and tying it to, man, I just don't feel like arguing. All right, man, you got it. Whatever the case may be, you know what I'm saying? But actually getting, our thoughts and feelings out, because our mental health is important too, right? So in summary, I would say just expressing ourselves in general. Black men do not do that enough, and it oftentimes works to our detriment in many ways.
I can agree with that. And although I'm not a Black man, I'm a married woman. So I can agree with that. I'm pretty sure most of the men can. So if you would like to pile onto that as it comes around to you for your individual question, please feel free to do so. Next up, Bethel. This question is for you. I can only imagine the sacrifice that it takes or it took for you to become a professional athlete. The dedication, the discipline, and the drive. The fans, the monies, the ups, the downs. So when the lights went off and the show was over, what was life like for you after football?
To be honest, for me, when I retired, I would put it like this: most guys don't get to retire; they get fired and never called back, and that was my case. And for me, during that time, the first 3 years, when I retired, I got married, had a son, so my life was changing, and personally, but professionally, my life changed completely. And so during that time, I went through a depression for about 3 years during that time. But for me, I didn't know I was depressed. I had all the signs of it, but I kept moving because I was still thinking, oh, I'm going to go back to the NFL. I'm going to go back. So I kept training and pushing my body and stressing myself out in different ways. Well, I didn't have time to sit and think about what I was going through at the time. But my wife noticed that, hey, you're depressed, because I would withdraw and sit in the dark and things like that. But I thought I was fine because, again, you know where I'm from, so it's like you don't have time to sit and be depressed about anything. And to AC's point, you don't as a man, you don't get the opportunity to feel anything, because you got to keep moving. Now I got a wife dependent on me. I got a son dependent on me. So I don't get a chance to really kind of sit back and say, hey, how do you readjust here? Right? I didn't have that opportunity. So I went through that for about 7 years. And ultimately I came out of it. But it was ultimately because I had a question that I asked myself, just popped on me one day when I was looking in the mirror. And the question just hit my spirit, was like, who are you? And at that point, I never, ever thought about it in that way. I've been asked many times over and over and over, who are you? They put a mic in your face, and I started telling people what I became. No, I'm a father, or when I'm a father, but I'm a Christian man. I'm a this, that, and other. Those are things I became, but that wasn't who I was at the core. And it wasn't until I asked myself that question that I had to sit back and really, really do the work and find Bethel Johnson, the kid at the core, who I was before I had any adult influence on my thoughts and how I saw the world. And once I got to that kid and I saw him and I met that person, I met me at 36. I tell people that all the time. So I met me at 36. And so for that, it's like, yeah, I went through all of that to get to where I am. But at the same time, you know, like to his point, we got to take time to figure out who we are. Or we're going to act out everything else everybody else calls us, right? We'll adopt those identifiers. And once you share those things and you meet yourself, I think they help people get through the parts of depression that no one ever really talks about. Because if people think they're failing or they're failures, these are all identifiers that someone else's perspective is of you. But you got to meet you and be good with that person. And that's what happened for me.
That was good. That was real. That was good. And I can identify with, quote unquote, everyone else calls us. I've called you. I've called Franks. I've relied on Trill. Like in the back room, hey, I need a little bit of how do I handle this, right? And I just met Trill, but y'all have been knowing me for years. And I think it takes a village. I've called both you and Franks when we had another ex-NFL player that was in dire need of support. And both of you step right in. I don't know the outcome because it's not my business to know, but I can attest that you men on the panel, maybe not necessarily in that situation I have called you, but I'm pretty sure that there have been times you've been called. You've answered. So I want to thank you all for that, right? Even when it goes unrecognized. And I think this is the perfect moment to segue to the next question. And I'm going to jump to Chauncey. Can you tell us more about your role as a character coach, a spiritual coach to the TCU football team, and how receptive the players are with having that accessibility to that type of support?
Definitely. So I oversee fellowship Christian athletes at TCU. So I've been with FCA for 18 years. I've been on TCU campus for the last 13 years. And I think one of the unique things about what we do is that we have nothing to do with a student athlete's playing time, but we are investing into their hearts and soul. And so we do that by our weekly gatherings where we'll have a weekly Bible study. We do that by having weekly one-on-one meetings. We do that by pregame chapel. We do that by just hanging around, being at practice, wrapping our arm around a young man, encouraging them, challenging them, and speaking into their life. And so they're very receptive. The coaches are very open. I mean, because, man, so much of their time is on the X's and O's and recruiting, and they do get a chance to pour into those guys. But for us, we provide a safe place where I don't have anything to do with their scholarship. I am ultimately there to coach their heart. I'm ultimately there to love on them. I'm ultimately there to open up my home, to let them see the struggles of being a dad, let them see the struggles of the joys of being a father, being a husband, and just to be a mentor to those guys. And I think over the years for me, I have the guys come over to the house, get a home cooked meal, watch the interaction of kids. And I'm just like, man, why y'all just post it up here? And those cats be like, man, coach, man, I ain't seen this before. I ain't seen a, dad before. I ain't seen a husband and wife. And so, man, this is you, like, you're giving me a visual of what I want to become one day. And so that's humbling when you recognize that they're looking at you. And even on the hard days of marriage, I'm like, man, this is rough. But they're looking at you like, say, hey, man, I want this. And then I think just the the spiritual truth, helping those guys with their identity. You know, like Bethel was saying about, you know, man, I've seen athletes struggle in their identity. I see them when an injury happened, depression take place. I always tell athletes that at some point in time, your body and your mind are going to divorce each other. That your mind says that you can still play, but your body like, nah, bro, you ain't got it no more. And that transition from, especially when you've been a collegiate athlete to real life, is, I would probably say, one of the hardest transitions, because you've had that structure all of your life. You have that adrenaline, so much big part of your life. You have that competitive edge that you're competing. And now you're trying to figure out, okay, hey, where do I go compete at? And so what we try to do is help them to think about life after ball. We try to help them to see that the discipline, the character, the excellent, the hard work transitions so well into life after whatever their sport is, football, baseball, basketball, whatever it may be. And if they can see themselves beyond that student athlete, man, they can tremendously set themselves up for success.
That's good. Let me ask each of you on the panel. I can only assume, and if I'm incorrect, please correct me. By way of hands, how many of you played some type of sport in high school and/or college on the panel? Did you have access to the resources that the athletes now have access to by way of a Chauncey Franks, those type of programs? No. Right. Chauncey, how do you even make that known to the athletes when they're coming in, they're freshmen, they're new on a campus? How do you even advertise and promote that type of program to the parents, most of all?
We've been fortunate at TCU. They've given us access to, they've really woven us into the athletic department. So I have a team of 4. We really try to wrap our arms around not only just the football team. I spend a lot of time with the baseball team, spend a lot of time with the basketball team. I have a young lady who works with our female athletes. And so for us, we let them know from the minute they come on a recruiting visit, when a mom and dad or parents sitting on campus, we want to let them know that, hey, we're here to coach your son, your daughter's heart. You have someone, if something's going on, if you feel something is off with your kid, you can pick up the phone and call us. And so it's one of those things that I love being a part of the recruiting process. I love being a part of sharing all that TCU has to offer. But more importantly, I love just getting a chance, the opportunity to connect with a young adult and help guide them. And not only are we guiding, there's many of the guys that have. There was a young man that's in the NFL. He had surgery today. He FaceTimed me. I was getting ready to get on the Zoom at 12 today. I turned on my FaceTime. They're willing him back. I see his shirt off. They're willing him back. He's like, Coach, I'm about to go into surgery. Will you pray for me? And I'm just like, bro. I'm like, I mean, that was humbling. You know what I mean? I prayed for him, and after I got off the call, just, you know what I mean, just kind of brought some tears in my eyes. You know, he's indicted, but he was aware enough to pick up the phone. The nurse stopped to allow the opportunity to pray. And so we're not just investing in them just for while they're on campus. We're walking with them their entire life.
Thank you so much for sharing. Speaking of female athletes, I'm going to come back to you later on, Bethel, because I found your trainer who's a female trainer. And I think that's pretty awesome and pretty kick-ass, because when you think about the masculinity and the machismo of a man, it's not often that a man will choose a woman, especially a man with an athletic background, choose a woman to train him. But I found her. I did my research. She's pretty good, but I'll come back to that a little bit later. So I want to transition to Tony. Tony, you seem to be able to have created a knack of expression by way of culinary art. Tell us more about how you use your culinary skills as a form of self-expression and a profession.
Sure. So it's something I just got into. I've always loved cooking. I'm from a large, excuse me, a large matriarchal family, and like most of us, you know, we have ascended from a place where food was the only offering we could offer. It was the way that we expressed love. It was the way that we expressed gratitude and care. It was even the way that we expressed condolences. The idea that something hot and something that was made with love could bring peace, could bring a sense of, just unity and gratitude. A lot of our stories, and when I say our, I mean people of color, specifically Black people, they begin at the dinner table. And so, I would watch my grandmother and the women in my family, again, a lot of women, express love through cooking. I mean, to the point where, there's not one woman in my family that I can think of under the age of 25 who doesn't have at least one degree. But then when it comes to Thanksgiving and Christmas and holidays and Father's Day and things like that, we really take a very almost archaic role when it comes to how the men are served and the women are cooking, and we're watching football, and we really don't get involved. And it's just a way of expressing love. And so for me, I wanted to not only provide nourishment, but I also wanted to provide opportunities for exposure, because I think that's what really is sometimes is lacking. I grew up in South Park, Houston, Texas, and for me, the world was Houston until I actually got a chance to see the world. And I was just blessed by my time in the military and my time in corporate America, being able to step foot on every continent. And in doing so, I was able to see how small my world truly was. But when I went overseas, what I recognized is that food was still that universal offering that people provided for you, and they wanted to give you a piece of who they were, their culture, their identity was expressed through their food. So when I decided to start cooking for people, I didn't want to just cook the things that we've always eaten. I wanted to provide people an opportunity to broaden their horizons and taste foods that maybe doesn't sound good in their mind because they can't conceptualize it. But if you can just get it to your palate, then it could really just provide you that exposure so that you can get past, what Nizoki Shange said, your 6 blocks. There's more than just fried chicken. There's more fish out there than just salmon, and it's a way of expression, and it's artistic as well. I'm a writer and a poet. The things that I can't do through art, I try to do in the ways that I can. So for me, just plating food and serving it and telling people what the ingredients are, and they taste it and they're like, oh my God, this is so good. It's a way of expressing myself through that. And it's paying homage to those women in my family who cared for us with the dinner plate. Now, because I care about people, I try not to cook the way they did. You know what I mean? I try to be conscious of the fact that we don't need to create weapons out of our food. So I try to be very conscious of people's dietary restrictions and a new way of expressing. But I still think that is the ultimate expression of love, is to sit down, break bread. I mean, to this day, I have this thing where I can't call you friend until we break bread. So I have a lot of people I have a lot of honor and respect for that I've met through the internet, and I purposely try to go to where they are, because I feel like if we could share a meal, then, and I can look you in the eye, then I can give you that moniker, that title, that very coveted title, friend. So
I love it. And the reason why I asked you that question is because I want Black men, Black boys to see there's more ways than one to express yourself. And it's not just physical, it's not just violence, it's not just internalizing. There are so many beautiful and diverse ways that you can express yourself with little to no words. And that takes me to my next person, Art Jackson. You are a former military, and that requires an entirely different mindset around discipline, teamwork, also a level of aggression. Because if you have to kill on command, you're going to do that. But then you also need to know when to pull back and go back into a normal life. What could this generation use more of? What are we missing when it comes to Black males?
What was the last part of the question, Queen?
When it comes to discipline, teamwork, collaboration, self-control, but also a little bit of aggression. Because you have a military background that requires you to be able to step up when you need to. When it comes to this generation of Black males, what do you feel like we're missing?
Right.
In all of those areas, whatever comes to mind.
Well, for me, one of the biggest things as it pertains to men and Black men in general when it comes to discipline, to me, it ties into trust. In order to, if you trust someone, like I had to do in the military and in law enforcement, you have to be able to you have to be the one to trust someone with your life, and that's not an easy task. Especially most recent careers as a law enforcement officer and being a SWAT operator. We had this thing that I would refer to as controlled aggression, because it requires aggression, but it definitely has to be controlled, because it could be, you have to let it go at the drop of a hat. You trigger and it's no longer necessary to use that level of force. So I always tie trust into my disciplinary, way of thinking and stuff like that. So, and more importantly, for younger Black men, I want to realize that discipline discipline can refrain us from all of the violence and the acting out that we partake in. That is one of the biggest, probably most prevalent things going on in our community now, is young Black men and men in general not knowing how to express through ways other than violence. Brother Trill mentioned that part about being a robot. And I can personally attest to that, because when I was in law enforcement, I had a personal friend of mine who referred to me as the Terminator. And once I retired, she saw a totally different side of me, because that law enforcement part of me was no longer necessary. It's like she was me, the new person, after I left that profession and stuff. So, and I say compartmentalizing is something that most men have a knack for, and which is really a detriment to us in many ways. I liken it to having a floor full of jack-in-the-boxes. Everything that we suppress is in that jack-in-the-box, or 100 jack-in-the-boxes. And just like up a jack-in-the-box, you don't know when it's going to pop open. And those issues that we are suppressing, you don't know when they're going to resurface. I lost my mother almost 9 years ago on Christmas Eve. 2 years ago was the first time I've ever really felt depression in my life. It was directly linked to, the loss of my mother. Because for 7 years, I learned to compartmentalize that feeling of not having to deal with, because, as a cop, I had to be ready to do this, that, or whatever, so I didn't have time to, tend to my emotional needs. And it was just really on the job one night. I had to stop, let the supervisor know I'm not of use tonight, because I was in a zone that I'd never been in and didn't know how to necessarily navigate. So it's just, yeah, I don't want to go too far into that, but that's where, that discipline, learning how to express yourself, like Brother Trill said. I think Brother Bethel mentioned the same thing about, being able to get in touch with your emotional needs, because we as Black men, we have a knack for ignoring those, and it's tearing us apart as a culture, in my opinion.
That's beautiful. In the most uncomfortable way. That is so beautiful. And I know you pulled yourself back. And would it be safe to say, I want to backdoor and piggyback off of what Bethel said. He said, I met myself at age 36. Would it be safe to say you met yourself 2 years ago? Emotionally.
I definitely met a part of me that I had never met before. Absolutely. Because, I had a pretty good knack for, keeping my feelings to myself. And, even though I'm not an athlete, we all familiar with that, sucked up, drive on mentality. And as a soldier and an officer, and sure as an athlete, many times your coach will tell you, just suck it up, keep moving. We've all heard that pain is weakness and stuff like that. Pain is weakness. And culturally, we as men are taught to ignore our pain. We coddle our daughters when they hurt themselves, but we tell our sons to suck it up and drive on. So,
that's deep. And I hope y'all are tuned in, locked, and loaded, and picking up what everything these gentlemen are putting down. And when you talk about coaches, I think it's a natural transition into you, Big Lou. A few months ago, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, talked about how baseball is priced out. He said it's so far priced out, it's out of reach, making it hard for African American Black boys to enter the sport from a financial perspective. You work with several individuals. What would you say to a parent who's wanting to enroll their male child, their Black child in the sport, but they can't afford it?
And that's a real topic. It really is. And I went back and forth myself because I know that our kids in the inner city, it is tough for them to afford bats, afford cleats. I mean, baseball is an expensive sport because you basically have to buy every piece of equipment that you have. When you go to a basketball game, you show up with basketball and sneakers and you can go hoop. With football, you usually are provided a helmet. Baseball is a little different, and I've been looking at so many different barriers we can cross to get over that hump. But at the same time, I still feel like that us as parents, we have to make sacrifices and decisions. We also spend money on multiple things. And I think just like we put money towards Jays and all these other things that our kids may want, we can invest in baseball. It doesn't have to be the top-notch equipment, but I guarantee you, giving your kid a chance, giving your kid a chance before you just shut the door on an opportunity, that's a tough one. Because me personally, yeah, you can go out here and play football, you can play basketball, but I still feel like baseball is a long-lasting sport that you can play into your 40s and 50s and still make money. Baseball is guaranteed money. Yeah, it is a definitely tough investment on the front end, but the long-term investment on the back end, it is guaranteed. But Prime makes he makes a valid point. But at the same time, football is expensive. If you're talking about 7-on-7 camps and everything that we're doing nowadays, it's very different from the way we grew up back in the 80s and 90s. This 21st century is real. It is nonstop where you're playing sports year round. So to me, we have to really ask ourselves what's the priority and what's our focus in those factors and what we're doing. If you want your child to play sports and you want to give them an opportunity in baseball, in football, whatever it may be, find out and make sure that's their passion versus just saying, this is what I connect with. This is the culture of my environment. I'm just going to let them continue to go down the street because this is where we're comfortable. Baseball is a very uncomfortable sport. It is a sport full of failure. And don't get me wrong, I know football is too, but baseball is a mental sport full of failure. And that's why I tell kids, that's why I love it, because to me, baseball is life. Like, we are going to fucking fail, like straight up. Life is not easy, and especially for us Black men. And I'm getting a little passionate now because my thing is we didn't have a rough road. We had a very fucking rough road. But now it's time, I'm telling you, my heart's so full from just these initial conversations from Bethel, Trill, Coach Chauncey, man, guys, being real, that is my thing. Like, if you want to talk to a real man, I promise you, we could talk all day about that. We have to put our kids in a different place so they can have opportunities. We can't shut doors and you don't even know what's behind the door just because it has a price tag on it. Like, knock on it first and say, hey, do I have some opportunities? Are there some payments that I can invest in this before I just say no? Man, come on. Like, we can go do whatever we want to and drive the finest cars, have the finest shoes on our feet, the finest clothes on our back, but then we walk in our house and we be like, what do we have? Like, ask yourself that at the end of the day. If you got more walking out of the door than you do inside the door, we got problems. You got to ask yourself consistently, what am I doing to put myself and my family in the right place? Because at the end of the day, this world that's outside of these doors is real. And it ain't giving us nothing. It is trying to take everything we have every single day. So for me, when I wake up, yeah, I try my best to make sure I wake up with a good attitude and put my kids in the right spot. No, I'm not always the most inviting guy. And I really tried to work on that, just being real. Tiffany has really opened the doors and kind of pulled some layers back on me to help me be more in touch with my boys. You know what I'm saying? Versus Trill, like Trill mentioned, us trying to have this masculinity piece of always just being this man, being this robot, what we have to be. Maybe it's time for us really to be in touch with our real emotional feelings and have real conversations. It ain't the fact that you crying on somebody's shoulder. It's the fact of saying, yeah, daddy hurts sometimes. But guess what? Daddy gonna fight. You need to know how to fight. But you also need to know what it feels like to hurt, because guess what? That hurt motivates you in the moments when you don't want to fight. You better wait. Anyways, like I say, yes, Coach Prime has a point. It is an expensive sport, but guess what? We all have sacrifices, we have priorities, and we all have opportunities. We just have to be prepared for those opportunities when they do come.
Listen, y'all are not disappointing. And Trill, before I go to Samson and Daryl Long, did you want to say anything? Because I know you got it started and your thoughts are probably flowing because a lot of people have referenced you and their talking points. Would you like to add on before I move on?
Yeah, man. I think first off, man, salute to the fellas, man. D, what up, boy? Welcome to the stage.
How you doing, brother?
Amazing, man. But yeah, man, I think bro touched on it, in terms of teaching our kids how to process things a bit better than us. Because fact is, they may not have our strength mentally. We might have been able to, grit our teeth, put our head down, and get through whatever it is. But that same thing that we might have been able to get through, that might send them on a path, that's, beyond, anything that we could ever imagine. So that's why we need to teach them healthy ways, and don't get me wrong, I can't really blame generations before us in terms of men because they can't teach us what they wasn't taught. So that my grandfather, great grandfather, they probably passed it down to them. All they ever seen was just, hey man, pops get up, go to work, 5 a.m., come home, 9 o'clock at night. That's just what it was. Damn near, kind of created a issue in terms of the relationship because he was gone so much, working, doing this, that, and the third. And every time we talked to him, it was, cold and it was hard. And just like bro said, young boys, we don't get to express yourself, man. Like you fall, get your ass up. What do you, girls cry? What are you doing? No. Come on. So it's that, and then if you done play some sports or you in the military, it's the same way. Like it's literally a sense of pride to get up, hurt, go on the sideline, get patched up, and get back in the game. Like that's a sense of pride to do that. Like you literally have to drag us off of the field because of how we program. Like, coach say all the time, like, are you hurt or are you injured? Everybody on this panel know the difference, right? So, but again, with that, like I say, it benefits us in certain areas. It benefits us in chasing our career. It benefits us in playing sports. It benefits us in, navigating through some of the neighborhoods that a lot of us come from. But that same thing will work to our detriment within our relationship with our woman, within our relationship with our kids. And we won't see it until it's too late. So, I just want to, basically echo what bro and them saying, man. Like, we got to teach a different way. Simple and plain.
I'm just so happy to be a fly on the wall, honey, because y'all are bringing it. But I got some hard ass questions coming up, so don't get too comfortable because I'm throwing everybody back into the fire pit. I'm gonna wrap it up with Samson and then D Long. So Samson, when it comes to mental health and well-being, you have dozens of mentees you support on this level. What is it that we don't know or we should develop or try to understand regarding the support that Black men are needing, things that they don't even talk about that you have access to?
Their story, beyond the trauma, reminding them who they were before that experience that led to their present day, their current condition. A lot of my folks that I mentee suffer or challenge with or getting over some of the challenges that PTSD overwhelms them with. I'll stop and pause and I'll salute all the men that have served on this panel. Seems like you brought us together, Queen. It's kind of deep here, and I'm learning already, but I always feel ill-equipped when I'm speaking with some of these soldiers that have fought for our freedoms, our liberties, our land, and they're younger than me, much younger than me. I'm 48, and the stories that they have defending our nation, compounded by what they experienced through racism, compounded by what they experienced growing up not having the resources, the tools, the support, 2 ears listening to them by the teachers that did not understand them. It becomes overwhelming, where they feel like the world misunderstands them, where they feel like the odds are stacked against them. They don't have to be in court to feel mistreated or misjudged. It's just everyday life walking out the front door. So I think what's worked for me is simply ensuring that I come as an active listener and give them a platform to simply share. And it doesn't have to be, who are you as a professional? It's more so, who are you as a person, right? The good and the not so good. I try not to use the good and the bad. So it's a lot of the words, the word choice that I introduce these conversations to ensure that there's nothing negative in the dialogue, in the exchange, because one bad word, quote unquote, can trigger and it can ignite different feelings and emotions where now the conversation is lost or being steered down the wrong path. And it's going to take time, right? Most of my mentees, there's no reason for them to trust me at the beginning. There's no reason for them to believe that I have something to add of value because I don't have their same experiences. So all I can do is be vulnerable and be who I am and show that I also have lessons learned. Even though our journeys may differ, I also have a past, and I'm connected to people that have pasts and that have struggled and that have overcome. And I embrace those challenges and I embrace those struggles, whether they're my own, they're my families, or my friends, or my colleagues, or my mentees, or they're heroes and zeros that are up above in heaven that I never even met, that I read about. All right. There's so much we can learn from Emmett Till. There's so much we can learn from Nelson Mandela. So much we can learn from not just Martin and Malcolm, but just pick who you want from civil rights, right? And it gets to a point where you say, you know what, I'm standing on some mighty strong shoulders. And it starts to minimize what you're currently going through, because it's a whole lot easier than what our forefathers and foremothers went through. So just drawing some of those correlations, it brings some things into perspective, and where you can show growth, where you can show, well, this is where we were, but look who was in the White House 8 years ago. It kind of changes these perspectives, you know. Look at how America was able to see Black family dynamics, the true Black excellence in the White House for 8 years. It changed the entire conversation around the world that we were more than just athletes, entertainers, help, hard workers, and know the field, can till the land, but intelligent speakers like Frederick Douglass. So my conversations is always going to be about empowerment and motivation, encouragement. It's going to be more optimism than realism, because the realism they're going to get every day, 24/7, more like 25/8. So yeah, that's kind of how I introduce the conversation to earn the respect over time with those that are struggling with mental health.
I kind of feel like you and Chauncey have similar backgrounds, where you're kind of like in the inner circle, things people would say to their doctor that they wouldn't say to their family members. So as you begin to think about some of the things and the trends that you see amongst Black males, I want you to think about 3 trends that you see and tie those into your talking points for the next questions that I have. Also, for Big Lou, I have a challenge for you. You said in baseball, you're going to fail. I want you to think about 3 things that a parent, a spouse could look for as a sign of failure when it comes to that particular sport, and how they can support their family member, their child, their spouse, as you begin to think about your talking points. And last but not least, we have Daryl Long. So Daryl, as a mental health advocate, what impact are you hoping to create among Black men?
Well, first of all, thank you for having the conversation, Queen Sheba, and to the rest of the gentlemen here as well. I think the most important thing is awareness. Like a lot of us, and I'm pretty sure you all can hear me, right? Just make sure. Good. A lot of people, they really don't know the information that we're talking about today, especially at a young age, right? So let me give an example. I love using myself as an example. When I was 19, I had my first child, right? And I didn't know anything about PTSD. I had no clue about postpartum depression, right? I had no clue about secondary trauma stress, which is traumas that come from experiencing that trauma around somebody else. I had no idea about adverse childhood experiences, right? Which all of us, I guarantee all of us got at least 3 or 4 of them, right? Knowing somebody that was incarcerated, growing up in harsh environments, and those environments basically shaping the way that you treat people, socialize, et cetera, et cetera. For the longest, me and other young Black men around me, we had unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? Marijuana, Patron, right? Women, right? These things, the Black community, we kind of use those things as a crutch. You get what I'm saying? And it kind of reminded me of the Solange song. I tried to sex it away. I tried to drink it away. We do everything else except talk to a therapist, talk to each other. And honestly, to me, be vulnerable. And let me say this too. Vulnerability requires trust. In order for me to come to my brothers and be vulnerable with them and be open with them, I have to know that I can trust you with that information, because nothing is more important and worse than Tony coming to me and say, my brother, I'm going through something. And I listen to Brother Tony, and then I take it somewhere and I use his vulnerability against him. It's either going to do one or 2 things. It's going to help him get to, realize that he needs to trust and vet people better, or some people it's going to create a very negative effect, and they're going to become far worse. So I think, Queen Sheba, for me, I just love to inform people. I love talking about the CDC study, breaking it down, and talking about how it affects people's social development, their neurodevelopment, ultimately their life outcomes, right? Is directly tied to your mental health, so I really appreciate the men having that conversation, specifically because 80% of all the self-deletions in our community come from us, from Black men. And if we don't talk about this, I fear that our population is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. That's all.
You didn't disappoint. And I'm going to work my way backwards. Chauncey, I'm going to toss the mic to you. When you think about everything that we're talking about, when we consider the increased statistics directly related to Black men dying young from gun violence, chronic conditions, police brutality, what are your thoughts?
It's heartbreaking. I grew up in a little country town. I grew up outside of Austin. I went to high school in Lockhart, but the area I grew up in was called St. John Colony. St. John Colony was one of the first Black colonized area in Texas after slavery. So my great-great-grandfather, he was able to buy 1,500 acres of land and pass it on down to his sons. And that land is still in our family today. And so, man, I grew up on pea fields, picking watermelon, baling hay, cows, and stuff like that. And so for me, the whole gun violence, the whole gang thing was never a part of my life, because I think for me, I was around men who loved God. And so when I'm seeing, as I've grown over and, venture out into the world, it breaks my heart, because to me, there's no win game in this. Like there's a false identity. And so, but when I get opportunity to sit down with those young men, man, that you see the hurt, you see the pain, you see the lack of identity, you see the need for attention, you see the need for discipline. And so in some ways, is portrayed as toughness, but in all reality, it's really wrapped up in weakness and insecurity. And so to see what young men are modeling themselves after today, it's terrible, because I'm looking at the group of men that are on this call today, and I'm just like, man, if every young Black male can have an individual like is on this call today, imagine what that can do for the young men across this nation. And that's what I truly believe, that every person that's hearing this, if there's one thing that you can possibly do for your kid, is finding a voice outside of your home that can speak into their life. And I really truly think that can radically change our communities in a great and positive way.
Well, I think we're making a difference, because Falk Nation says young men like myself enjoy having these conversations. Thank you all. And Bethel, I'm going to pass the mic to you. Same question. Considering when we consider the increased statistics directly related to Black men dying young from gun violence, chronic conditions, police brutality, what are your thoughts?
I would say my thoughts on that is simple. When you look at the environments, that we are put in, and we often don't have any guidance in those environments, and you don't have any, to Chauncey's point, you don't have any men to talk to in those situations. So we usually kind of lean into our own understanding of those situations, or we have guys around us, or men, or so-called men around us, which I call, and I tell people this all the time, not every male is a man. Not every adult age male is a man. And so I grew up in an environment, Queen, it's hard because I know you're that I grew up in Stop 6 in Fort Worth. And at the time I was growing up there, you didn't have a lot of men. You saw a lot of male around. So you usually have guys giving you information from their understanding, and their understanding is often flawed. So then you lead young men to follow that information, and then you'll find themselves into gangs and things like that, which I ended up doing, when I was in high school, because I was following the wrong type of information. And it wasn't until I got around the right type of people who had my best interest, who saw what I was, saw my talent, saw what I had to bring to the world, that I started getting guided into the right direction. And I think a lot of us in our communities aren't going back to our communities to point guys, kids, and young men in the right direction. And that was something that I was taught, which is completely flawed. It wasn't until I read the book Brainwashed is when I realized that, man, they got me too. I could have been coming back from the NFL, coming back and help building my community. I could have came back and poured into my community. But no, they said, no, we're going to pick you out, cherry pick you, and say, don't go be like them. But those kids need you. But you don't understand that. And it took a long time for me to really understand that. It took a long time to even admit that I was from Stop 6. When you look at my stuff, it says I'm from Corsicana. No, I'm from Stop 6. I moved to Corsicana. It's a complete difference, right? In mentality, environment, and what you see. All those things play a part in who you become. And so I feel like when it comes to this type of violence that we see, even those people, even for police officers, they need guidance too. They need guidance too. But they don't, again, this is macho, right? We got to do this. We got to be tough. We got to do these things, right? But they need help too. But people, they don't sit down and get help. They need help. I know when I left the game of football, and if you have PTSD from that, just imagine what you have as an officer. Just imagine that, right? There's no guidance there either. And I feel like without those type of things, and those type of structures set up that are not being set up in place, then you have people falling victim to violence because there's no guidance. They're surrounded by a lot of adult age males and not enough men. And that's what our problem is, I see in our community when it comes to our sons.
Listen, bro, we're gonna pass the offering plate around. We're gonna collect a tithe on this one because you said there's a lot of males, but not enough men. And then you talked about that book where you said they got me too. We've all been got in some way, whether it's by the other side or our own side. And I remember one time I was on the cruise season. I don't remember the conversation we were having, Trill, but OT said, sometimes men fool other men. Don't get it twisted. Ladies, don't be upset because he fooled you. Sometimes they fool us too. And that's how you get God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the most inspiring conversation. Louis Whitlow says next time the sons are coming out. So if you gentlemen want to put together a panel and bring your nephews, your sons, I'm more than happy to facilitate that because I come up with some bomb ass questions. So I would like to pass the mic to R. Jackson. Same question for you. When it comes to the increased stats directly related to Black men dying young from gun violence, chronic conditions, police brutality, what are your thoughts?
I'll speak first on the gun violence among each other. I think it's a direct reflection of the inability to communicate, whether it's, resolving issues, resolving personal issues within, I just can't fathom that a young Black man wakes up one morning and in his heart feel like he wants to go kill one of his own. So I think what happens is we find ourselves, or they find themselves in a situation to where they can't communicate what they're going through. They're expected to handle things in the most masculine way possible. Most of us on this channel has probably had a fist fight back then, but it was just that, a fist fight. You went through something, you had another day to come back and deal with these kids today. They just don't see it. And so it's like the idea of expression is I feel is lost in this generation, because for one, they're inundated with so much information, so much access that they're emotionally unattached, because we had to catch the news at 6, 5, 11. News is in their hand 24/7 now. Everything is so accessible that we've cut that, not just the younger generation, but most people, we're desensitized to just about anything that goes on in the world. Think about the University of Virginia shooting that just occurred here recently. You're not hearing a lot about it, hearing things, but it's not even shocking anymore when they have these shootings, because they so often that we're desensitized to the situation. And so communication skills, to me, is the foundation of just about anything that we do as humans, whether it's man, woman, boy, girl, child, you have to be able to communicate what you feel and how to be able to express yourself. On the law enforcement side of things, I spent 10 years in law enforcement. I left law enforcement because it became a moral conflict for me. Being 20 years as a soldier, 10 years as an officer. I think it was Brother Bethel said they got me too. Well, you can imagine after 30 years of civil service, and when you look at the way that this, and I'm law enforcement officers, not all people, but the way that I feel that they treat us as Black people, that flag, what we were taught that flag represents, we were all fed a bunch. We were all fed something that wasn't meant to digest by us. So to serve that long, I felt like, man, I just can't do this anymore. What am I doing? It's like all of my service was for the other side. To put it bluntly, what have I done for the country? How does this reflect my legacy? And it, like I said, just more conflict. Numbers became more important than people, in my opinion, over policing in many areas, under policing and others. So if I could have one thing change in law enforcement, it would be the minimum age for becoming an officer. I don't feel any 21-year-old can help any 30, 40, 50-year-old with life problems. You don't have life experience. Minimum age of 25. You might start having some problems at 25, but at 21, you don't know anything. Graduate high school, maybe college was your biggest achievement. You haven't been through enough. So I'll pause it at that point right now.
No, I think you just gave a valuable jewel. Most people probably didn't even know 21 was the minimum age requirement. Think about your 21-year-old nephew. Would you give him a gun? Hell to the no. You get what I'm saying? And with that being said, it's the same question in a different format. I'm just going to switch it up for the top half of the panel. Tony, considering the recent death of Migos rapper Takeoff, what are your thoughts regarding the street mentality?
You know, it's funny. I have a 25-year-old son. I'm 46. And I really appreciate what AC said about we're raising, and I'm paraphrasing, we're raising a very different generation than the men that we grew up as and the men we grew up with. And I won't lie to you, it's difficult because, you know, being from where I'm from and everything I've encountered and everything I saw and everything that, you know, I went through, I purposely did not want my son to experience any of that. But then there was this disdain that I had for his softness, his inability to navigate the streets, his total lack of street savvy. And I had to own that I created that. You know what I mean? I literally curated a life that he did not need those things that I required to survive. And so I say all that to say that there was this line from a Biggie song that I used to have such a problem with, and the line is from Juicy, call the number same numbers, call the house same numbers, same hood. It's all good, something like that. I messed it up, but
I got you.
have
I got
an
you,
issue with-
Tony.
you
I
got
got
me?
you. I'm blowing up like they thought I would. Call the crib, same number, same hood. It's all good.
Right,
And if
there
you
you go.
don't
Thank you. I
know,
appreciate
now
it.
you know. You got it. You got it.
So I used to have an issue with that because I felt like, okay, if you're out of, the whole point of the game is to get out of the hood. So why is the number the same? But what I realized is that the problem we focused in, you know, in the 60s and 70s and sometime in the 80s as well, we focused on white flight, but the biggest issue was black flight, because we would ascend to these places of, you know, ascend beyond our socioeconomic status, and then we would leave and go live in, you know, the suburbs or in white neighborhoods. And behind, you know, the doctors, the lawyers, the Indian chiefs, we all left. And what we left behind was the pimps, the hustlers, the drug dealers. And so those were the mentors, the icons, you know, the men that our young boys who did not go with us, those who were left to govern what manhood looked like. So we didn't give them an opportunity to see the police officers. We didn't give them an opportunity to see, you know, the accountants and the things like that. And so when we asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? There's no surprise that most of them wanted to go into the NFL, the NBA, or be Nino Brown, because that's who we left behind. And so when I see a Takeoff who has, again, ascended beyond his situation, I mean, he literally is now at a different place, a different socioeconomic status, but yet he's downtown Houston shooting craps. And again, you know, I'm not suggesting that he is guilty of facilitating his death, but I will say that we have to get to a point where we recognize that there is just certain places you can't go once you've been to certain places. And there are certain places, certain people that just can't go with you once you go into certain spaces. And that's a hard lesson to learn when no one around you, no one in your vicinity, no one from your vantage point is displaying that. Because the local drug dealer, the hustler, the pimp, those people are still in the hood. Call the crib, same numbers, you know what I mean? While the rest of us, we leave off to a better life. And I won't disparage anyone for wanting better for themselves.
Right.
But I do think that we have a responsibility and we are accountable for those who we leave behind. I can't remember who said it, but someone once said we have to learn that we don't have to be in the community to be in community with those that are in the community. And I think that's a very important thought process, because I don't have to live in the hood to still, support the hood, to still buy in the hoods, to still, try to keep Black dollars in the hood, to even just be present. So that I remember I have a, not to brag, but I have a nice car. And now that I'm in LA, I was on Crenshaw Boulevard, and this young man, probably about 10, 11 years old, he's like, "Hey man, what you do for a living? How you get that car?" And my first thought was to be offended by the question until I recognized the opportunity. And so when I told him what I did for a living, he was like, "Well, what's that?" He didn't even know. He couldn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't a job that he associated with a career that could be a choice for him. And so all he saw was the trappings of my success. But through that opportunity, I was able to open his door, or open his mind to a possibility that transcended what he thought were the limits of his success. But I could not do that if I was afraid to go into certain spaces.
Gotcha.
And that was the first thing I heard when I got to LA, when I moved here from Atlanta. Man, don't go here, don't go there, don't go. I have on my TikTok page, I have a whole playlist of me going into hood grocery stores, and that's not my vernacular, that's what they're called, and just being present. And I don't think that we can be afraid of our youth and still want to change our youth. You have to be mindful that they have a different mindset, true. But a lot of these kids are just looking for conversation, not confrontation. A lot of times the confrontation comes from the fact that no one's talking to them. People are ignoring them, and they feel like no one can see them. So when we see a takeoff, or all these, the young brother that got shot at, Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, just like there is a concerted effort to cut down anyone who ascends beyond a certain point. So it makes sense that if you ask a bunch of 16-year-olds, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It makes sense that they will answer dead, because in their mind, between now and death, I could get platinum chains, I can drive a nice car, I can get a bad, I can do what my heroes have done, and that's live to die. And it doesn't matter when I die, as long as I lived in that short amount of time, as long as I was able to flex on Instagram, as long as I was able to buy the latest J's. And that's the pinnacle, that's the zenith of what they feel life is like. Why? Because this panel is filled with men who have ascended, but then also we have absconded, we left, and we have to come back. We have to make our presence known. We have to make our presence visible, and not just those who we are in relation with. That is important. I don't need to share your blood in order for me to share your experience. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, about how people see where you are, but they don't understand the gaps and the journey.
And I think that we put so much effort, or so much emphasis on, getting it out the mud and all this other stuff. I don't want my son to get anything out the mud. I want my son to recognize that all of the stuff that I've gotten out the mud is now for you to get. You don't have to walk my path, because I don't want my grandson to walk my path, and I damn sure don't want my great grandson to do it. I think it was Chauncey, Mr. Franks that said, Pastor Franks that said, someone bought land and created wealth for generations. That's the mindset that we have to have. But that wealth can't just be financial wealth. It also needs to be emotional and spiritual and mental wealth. If we can teach our sons,
I have that question.
Yeah, all right.
I don't want you to spill that yet. Hold that.
All right.
I'll
mute myself. I'm verbose, so you got to set me up.
I got it. Because I want to come back to that for each and every one of you. And I want you to be thinking about that. Exactly what he just said, because I'm going to give you each an opportunity to go into deep detail about your legacy and legacy building. And with that being said, Trill, I'm going to pass the mic to you. You're the youngest man on this panel. I feel like you are in a perfect position to see the best of both worlds. You see us, you see them, and then you see you. And when you think about the recent death of, hold on, Bethel had to help me, Takeoff. What are your thoughts regarding the street mentality? Trill.
Be honest, I think it's crippling us, man. I do. It has been crippling us forever, but you know, it's a situation where it's programming involved. The fact is in our community, violence is currency. We can sit and we could denounce it. We got to stop the violence. We got to do this. We got to do that. But then when that gangster movie come out, we're gonna be the first ones at the theater to watch it. When that rapper that we feel like is actually living what he rapping, we're gonna be the first ones to turn on our Apple Music and listen to it. So these are the things, like when we coming up, like especially in a lot of those neighborhoods, the amount of respect that you get is based on how much people believe that you will actually hurt something. You could be smart, you can be gifted musically or whatever the case may be, but none of that, like it's literally kids to this day. And when I was in school and back before that, they get clowned for being smart. It's like, oh man, sit your smart ass down. So we ain't worried about what is you on, da, da, da. But that if you got another dude that's go to that same school and he done shot 3 people, he gets a certain respect, certain praise when he walks around campus or when he walks through the neighborhood because of the work that he put in. You know what I'm saying? It's so much so to where if you even think about it, just to show how crazy our mind is wired, like people that go to jail and come home get more love than people who go to college and come home. Speaking from experience, you know, I was one of the lucky ones to leave and go to college and come back, and you would think that you would return the praise. Like, damn, he done made so much stuff. He driving a good car. He done graduated. Damn, salute, bro. But nah, you don't get that. You get, damn, he think he better than us now. Damn, he done switched up, man. He ain't from the hood no more. He ain't with it no more. Like, he a square now. But the dude go do 10 years and get out. Oh, he a real one, man. He ain't tell nothing while he was in there. He held it down. This, that, and the third. He put work in. He able to walk around here with his chest out. All of that. Hey, real nigga. So I think that right there speaks to just how warped our mind is. And a lot of times you don't realize it until you are able to leave that type of environment. And then you telling your story to people. You know, when I went to school, I was 98% white, 95% white. So I was completely out of my comfort zone with, you know, you telling your stories and stuff that you done seen and people looking at you like you just, what? That happened when you were 14, 13? And you thinking like, damn, why y'all so shocked? Because when you in your neighborhood, that's normal. Seeing people get shot. Like I you know, I ain't gonna go into too much detail, but I seen a lot of things before I was supposed to see them. And was involved in a lot of things before I was supposed to be involved in them. But what that does is that cripples you. So you'll look at somebody like a Takeoff and be like, well, damn, he escaped, man. How in the hell would he come back around that? Because that's what's comfortable to him. Just because you got the success, just because you got the money, just because you got the opportunity, don't mean that you're gonna be comfortable once you get there. Because let's just be honest here, most black men that come from them environments are more terrified being in a room full of white corporate people than they are being in a room full of shooters or robbers. Because again, this is familiar. But when I'm in that corporate room with these white folks using these big words and stuff that I ain't know, they talking, using references, money, businesses that this is, whoa, it's going over my head. It's terrifying. But when I'm around these shooters and, you know, robbers and niggas that I didn't grow up with in my neighborhood forever, it's, you know, it's comfortable. That's just DJ. Yeah. He done shot 3 people, but that's, you know, that's bro. So, you know, I think it's going to take us just seeing examples of just other ways of success. You know, in my neighborhood, we didn't have no doctors. We didn't have no lawyers. We didn't have no, you know, welders and scientists and chefs. That wasn't it. It was a couple ways out of there. It's gonna be sports. It's gonna be drugs. It's gonna be music. or you was gonna stay there and be working in the refinery for the rest of your life. And that was what was deemed as success. So like I said, it's not until you leave these places that you realize, well, damn, welders make what? Oh, HVAC makes what? What is it? 45 an hour, 60 an hour. Never heard of that. So it's going to take us, again, just more examples of just things that we are not familiar with, like being in close proximity to where we can reach out and touch. We can reach out and, ask questions. Because growing up, you always heard about astronauts. You always heard about doctors. You always heard about lawyers. But again, if you don't see it up close, you don't realistically believe you can do it. And also the flip side of that is we got to take care of the people who go out and achieve those successes and try to come back to help us. Because the fact that the same way that, again, is you wear your neighborhood with a sense of pride when you leave. But when you come back, a lot of times you'll be fooled. Just like bro talking about, oh man, I got a nice car, man. I pulled up in the hood and I blessed the youngins and whatever. And he right. But tomorrow you'll try to do that and niggas will rob you and shoot you to try to take your car. That's just the reality of it. Is it, right? No. But again, when you're from it, you always cognizant of that. So that kind of make you kind of hesitant. It's like, shit, I done made it out, man. I'm gonna donate a little money here, there where I can, but But at the same time, you still feel ties to it. You still feel like survivor's remorse, even. I felt that. I was in college by myself. All my homies still back in the neighborhood doing this, doing that. They calling me with stories, and I'm over there doing something productive out of the city. And I'm still like, damn, they did what? Y'all did what? Oh man, that's great. Oh man, I wish I was there, bro. Oh, people getting hurt, all type of shit. And you like wishing that you could, kind of bring everybody with you and all of that. And because you can't, you'll go into depression behind that. So that right there, like I said, in the sense of like a takeoff, that causes you to kind of keep close ties to that. And, it costs us our life a lot of times.
Yeah.
Take off for freak accident, Nipsey Hussle, Chinks drugs. We can go down the line. It's a lot of them. But, again, I think it just all stems from programming, man. Violence is currency, and we have to find new currency. Until we do, this type of thing just going to keep being repeated.
Yeah, that's good. I heard someone give a summary of the street mentality. And she said back in the day when you had your Ice Cubes and your Bone Thugs Harmony, your Eazy-E's, you could say that from your nice neighborhood in Hollywood. But now the goons are coming to you. So what happens when the goons leave the hood and track you down in your nice neighborhood and knock on your door? It's not so entertaining. And with that being said, I'm going to keep the same order. I'm going to go to Lou and then swing it back to Samson. Big Lou, what's your thoughts? Coach Lou, I'm sorry. What are your thoughts on the street mentality?
Big Lou is totally fine. Street mentality is, I feel like it's a culture of our environment. I mean, just being real, that is the common factor that we always talk about, being a culture of your environment. You are what you see. Like, it is hard to break what you wake up and see day in and day out. And going back to what, Coach Chauncey, Dr. Chauncey said, if you don't have mentors like the men that are on this podcast right now, on this show, it is tough. If you don't have a group of men, and key things that I wrote down was, number one, your tribe, your village. That's something that I feel like we've got to start building in this 21st century. Like, to me, 80s, man, my grandmother passed, love her to death. She was all about family. It was all about tribe. It was all about your close connections, your relationships to people. And that's one thing, honestly, that drives me to this day. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, especially after she passed. It's like, that's a piece of her that's going to live through me. And I'm all about family, the tribe, and what we do. But going back to the question, it is a culture of our environment. When that's what it's hard to break some of those ties. And it even goes back to what I look at even in coaching. Baseball is so repetitious. You go through and you take a lot of repetitions, and sometimes you can create bad habits and not even know it. You're thinking that all this time you're going through, you're creating good habits, but really it's a whole nother side that you haven't been exposed to or even haven't been told to say, why don't you just stop for a second? Why don't you look at this piece of it before we go down this street? And I feel like the more our kids get the opportunities to be exposed to these things prior to just being locked in to say, I'm waking up and I'm talking to my uncle on the street corner. You know, I mean, and that's just being real. That is what our kids are going through versus being in school, learning to understand life. I feel like a lot of times we go through life and we don't ask the right questions. You know, teachers always tell you, hey, if you got a question, ask. We've had the mentality of you ask a question, guess what? You're going to be that person that gets picked on. Like my guy said, if you smart, they probably going to beat you up for it. So my thing is that sometimes we close our mouths just to look like that person so we can be cool. But sometimes we got to understand opening your mouth helps you and puts you in a different position. As we always say, closed mouths don't get fed. And that's a real term. Like you got to understand what that meaning is and how it's applied in your life.
That's some good stuff, Louis. They're picking it up in the chat. And with that being said, Samson, what's your thoughts regarding when we think about the recent death of Takeoff? What are your thoughts regarding the quote-unquote street mentality?
I think Jackson said it earlier that we are becoming desensitized. It's my hometown. Takeoff was 28 years old. I mean, a lot of Texans on this panel right here today, we know about UGK. We know about Ghetto Boys. We know about all the groups that, you know, different parts of Texas that have come and gone. And they're usually trying to have a good time in the process. I mean, we all played craps. We all played cards. We all been at a game. We all been at a roller skating rink. And how many lives are lost at these places where we're just having a good time. So right, wrong, or indifference, it's a damn shame that he went on home too soon. But like I always say, there's no better place to wake up than at the feet of God, you know. So I know he's celebrating up there with all of his lost loved ones. As it relates to street mentality, I wrote down some notes myself that just came to mind. Within the Black community still, 1 in 5 are still in poverty. 1 in 5 are still in poverty. And when you think about our Black family dynamic, the majority of them, 43%, single Black women raising 1 to 2 children on their own. So discipline is always going to be lacking. I mean, she's working, she's in school, then she has to cook, grade home, look over homework, and then have quality time. It's too much of a juggle for just a single woman or a single man trying to raise kids. You know, back in the day, all of us, maybe not Trill, but we had switches on our ass. You know, we didn't have belts, right? And not just one switch. You know, we had multiple switches. You know, and it was mama, daddy, even if he wasn't in the house, whenever he was around, he was whooping that ass. We had big mama, we had all the aunties, uncles, even we had teachers, coaches, pastors. Everybody was a part of the discipline factor. That's the biggest piece of what's missing is our village, like Pretty Accountant just put in there. Our village is broken. And the system knew exactly what they were doing with this whole divide and conquer philosophy. They've been doing it for centuries. We're just seeing the very tail end of it within our generation. You know, our students, our kids are in front of teachers that don't understand them. Another big reason why street mentality is so corrupt. We don't have enough of us teaching us. We don't have enough coaches coaching us. We don't have enough mentors mentoring us. I mean, I can go on and on this topic, but I'm gonna yield the time back to you, my queen.
It's beautiful, and I agree. It takes a village, and a lot of times, not only does it take a village, it takes a village to agree to disagree, and still love you as you are. There's a couple of you on this panel. You've seen me at my worst. You've seen me at my best. And yet here you are showing up for me. I mean, you know, and it really does. And I think there's so many lines in the sand. We don't even see men and women embracing each other in a village like they used to. Me and Bethel, we've had so many conversations over the years, from religion to businesses to mental health to just love life questions. Hey, I'm dating this guy. What do you think? Like, just everything over the course of the years. He's traveled to talk business, right? And connections. You can't even do that anymore. I feel like we've become so far removed from each other as Black men, Black women. And I'm going to get to that Black men, Black women part. But before I do, let me hand the mic to Daryl to see what you have to say about the street mentality.
Well, you know, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach to talk about, because one of my cousins, he just got out of jail for I don't know if I even want to like say the word, but he was selling H, right? I'm just gonna call it that, dog food, whatever you want to call it, right? And I grew up in that type of environment, so I want to speak to something. When young Black boys, and the men here have spoken about this, when they don't have the right mentors, they end up in a certain type of environment. I grew up in Detroit, where BMF, YBI, Blade Icewood, Team Eastside, 7 Mile Bloods, these people were considered gods. And people, when I get on the internet, they still don't understand why. Myself, I hold like specifically BMF, Meech and Terry to such a high degree. It's because when you're in the ghetto and you see these men, they're in these different neighborhoods. They don't care about your neighborhood. They don't inspire any love and devotion, right? But the street dudes, I can't tell you how many people on my basketball team got new shoes and all of that. They showing up at the games. That's real love. Some of these dudes, their own fathers wasn't there. But the homie knew, hey, bro, this mean a lot to him. We are there tonight. And if they win, you know what I'm saying, even though we young, and this is inappropriate, but we're going to have the girls waiting for them. We're going to have the drinks waiting for them. And guess what that feel like too? More love, right? And then, you know, as much as people talk about the streets, I always tell people, a young Meech and Terry, they grew up in Ecorse, Michigan, right down the street from Detroit, 15, 16 years old. They started BMF. They did that because, and if you go listen to their mother speak, as she is doing a documentary on her son's life right now, her husband couldn't afford the bills. The people in the community that could lend out money and help, as one of the brothers said, they was making fun of them when you had the lights off, when you had the no electricity. Guess what that type of treatment inspires in young Black boys? Resentment, right? And then that resentment inspires what? Devotion to never allow this to happen again. So when you go out and ask somebody, how can they take another brother's life? How can they go out and do these different things? They don't look at it like I'm committing crime. As they said, we are a family, the Black Mafia family. There's one brother on there, they call him White Boy. You can do your research. His brother has cerebral palsy, right? In a wheelchair his whole life, couldn't move. Look it up. Big Meech paid for his college, you know what I'm saying? Had him going to all different kind of clubs, paid for his house and everything. That is devotion, because you can go to some of these people that graduated from college, these people with Patreons and everything else, and ask them, can you take care of me like that? And they're not going to do it. And on top of that, before we even go into like further and further, if we go back 20, 30 years, you had a young man by the name of Chairman Fred Hampton that was in Chicago, Illinois, right? And he built a coalition called the Rainbow Coalition, and it was founded by the gangs and streets, the street men of Chicago. They founded a medical facility that serviced the Black community here. They founded a small lawyer firm that was basically pro bono and would help people in legal situations. But the streets don't answer to the OGs like this. I talked about this on Trill Page recently, a few weeks ago. If we had OGs like y'all more in the hood, the people the people wouldn't end up like that. But the devotion that we get, it comes from the streets. And I'm gonna end it on this because Tony, I got a quote for you too from Tupac. Even though I sell rocks, it feel good putting money in your mailbox. I love paying rent when the rent's due. I hope you got the diamond necklace that I sent to you. Cause when I was low, you was there for me. You never left me alone and always cared for me. So if it means that I got to go out and do whatever, then I'm gonna make sure that my family taken care of because these are the people that's inspiring love and devotion to me. That's why the streets is ruling right now. That's all I got to say.
And who was he talking to? Give us the title of that song so these women can understand.
He was talking to black women. That was Dear Mama.
Dear Mama.
Mm-hmm.
Black man's first love. Dear Mama. I hope you got the diamond necklace that I sent you. And speaking of Dear Mama, R. Jackson, how important is a woman, if it's even important, to a man's legacy? Oh, y'all ready, huh?
Oh wow, man, it's immeasurable when you think about it. A woman is an immeasurable asset to a man. But the biggest, I have this thing where I always, talk to my daughter when she is in school. I had to ask her two questions: are you ready for your test that's coming up? And of course, she says yes. And then I follow up with, but are you prepared? Because there's a distinct difference between being ready for something and being prepared for something. We often want stuff and we feel like we're ready for it. We're not at all prepared to receive it. And I think that's a big issue with most men. I don't even know if I'll speak to black men. Often we're not prepared to receive the blessings that a woman can bring into our lives and stuff. Because many of us grew up in a single parent household. Many of us are not taught how to be a man by a man. You're taught that perspective from a woman's perspective. So you just don't have the necessary tools often to receive the blessing of a woman. But I mean, yeah, a woman that portion of your legacy. Like I said, it's immeasurable to have that type of blessing in your life and stuff. But we just have to be prepared for it. That's the key.
Yeah. So if you were saying that to an 18-year-old, how would you say that? If he doesn't know what immeasurable meant, what would you say?
To an 18-year-old, probably what I would tell him is to put aside your toughness and learn how to receive the love of a woman. Many of us on the panel have talked about, that tough, that hard exterior that we're required to have to sustain as black men in the streets and in the community and stuff like that. But you have to be able to put aside that toughness, and you have to be able to be willing to be vulnerable, and which is not an easy task. It's not an easy task for a 50-year-old, let alone an 18-year-old. It may be even easier for an 18-year-old because they haven't been through the bumps and bruises of a 50-year-old, but the level of vulnerability required to receive something like that. And it's something that I still work on. I don't know about the brothers on it, but I'm a single man. I'm divorced. So it's like those are still battles that I fight today in terms of ensuring that I'm prepared to receive that type of stuff in my life. So.
And ladies, Ron is about 6'6" now. How tall are you, Ron? You said you put yourself out there. I was going to. How tall are you?
Well, man, that's.
I think your audio broke up, but that's okay. We're gonna come back to you. We're not gonna let that slide. Bethel.
6'2", 240.
Oh, 6'2". Okay. Okay. You seem taller in person, but that's okay. So Bethel, when it comes to a man's legacy, how important is a woman? Where does a woman fit in that puzzle? Even if she fits, some men may say, I got this. I don't need one. What are your thoughts?
You muted, sir. You muted.
Muted.
I'm gonna put it this way. I'm gonna put it how I put it in my house, right? My wife and we've had these conversations. And one thing about me, I live up front. We have honest conversations because that's the only way you're gonna get real results. And so for me, we've had a conversation when we were sitting in therapy, and I told her and my therapist, which is also a woman, the stuff that I do. Like, my children are going to live out my legacy regardless, whether she's in it or not. At the end of the day, I'm building this out for my children anyway. So yes, a woman is important to usher in that legacy of your children, but the man has to execute that legacy anyway, right? So if you're building it out, you're on your purpose, you're on your mission, you're gonna do it anyway, regardless. So she is an important piece of ushering in the seed that will carry out your legacy, but you're gonna have to be the one to execute it yourself. And so I give an example of that. I told him, I said, listen, when you think about the Bible, I'm not as religious as probably y'all, most of y'all or whatever, but when you think about the Bible, Adam and Eve, when Eve showed up, Adam was already on his purpose. He was already on his mission. She showed up to aid him in that purpose and in his mission for the legacy that he was already building out. He's got to carry this out anyway. He's gonna have to carry it out. When she showed up, he was already tilling the garden. So that's when the Bible said, it's not good for man to be alone. He's talking about mankind. Adam was already doing his thing. When she showed up, it's like God made a help meet for him. That means a help made for him. You're here to assist me in getting this done. But it's not for me to deviate from my mission, my purpose, to start then now turning towards yours. So I feel like my legacy, or the legacy that I'm creating, that I have, that I'm setting up for my children, are going to be executed one way or the other. My wife had an important part of ushering in the seed that's going to carry it forth, but I'm the one that got to execute it, because that's why we have the vision, the long vision. Men have long vision, right? We are the visionaries, but our women are the ones that got to usher in the seed so we can make sure our legacies will be carried out.
That's why I love my panel. We talk openly, honestly, we push back, we debate, and we do it in the most sophisticated and respectful manner. And you remember I said about the village, how a lot of us are not taught to agree to disagree, not even saying anybody's disagreeing, but creating a place for Black men to express themselves without a gunshot or a bullet to follow behind. Does that make sense? And I just love the way
I don't have to have a crowd to agree with my position on anything.
Right.
It is what it is with me. Like, I mean, I'm cool with that.
Right.
But that's where I stand on where I am as a man, period. But my children is top priority, because they didn't ask to be here. So for me, whatever legacy I'm setting up, I'm making sure my kids are going to be well. I'm talking about, I got 10 generations planned out. So I'm not, that's just what you got to be as a man. You got to be able to see past what's going on right now and make sure that you're setting up stuff, making sure that your great grandkids will know who you are, because that's one thing we lack in our community. We think generational wealth or generational or legacy is just 1 or 2 generations. No, it's not. It's way further than that. We're not taught to think past 1 or 2 generations. We don't even know what it looks like, because we never met anyone who actually have generational wealth. We just haven't.
And the reason I said that, Bethel, YouTube can get real aggressive and real volatile and real hood real quick. And a lot of times in the YouTube streets, it takes one thing for everything to pop off, from the chat to the panel, and it's a viral moment. And I just love it.
I'm built for it. I'm built for it. I met me at 36, so I'm built for it. So it don't matter.
Right. And with that being said, Chauncey Franks, when it comes to your legacy and how a woman can or cannot complement that, what are your thoughts?
When I was in college, I sat down with a very successful business guy and asked him advice on money. And we sat down, and first thing he said is, I put out my pencil, and he says, Chauncey, the best advice I can give you about money is this. He says, the woman that you marry will be one of the greatest gifts or greatest burdens of your life. And I'm like thinking to myself, man, what does that have to do with money and legacy and all that kind of good stuff? But man, when you look at the relationships and you look at what relationships can be. It can be something that can bless you. It can be something that you have individual in your life where you're championing each other, where you are encouraging each other, even though you're struggling through the relationship things that come with being in a relationship with someone. But when you have that partnership, it can be a beautiful thing. You know, it allows you the opportunity to have kids. It allows you the opportunity when you walk through those doors or y'all come home together, that it can be a safe haven, that you have someone that you are spending quality time with, that you're intimate with, that you are building something together. And so I think a woman is a tremendous key piece, equal piece to my legacy. Who I am for the last, my wife and I've been married 18 years. And the highs and lows of that may have been, man, the beautiful 3 kids that we have, the home that we have, the opportunities that we've been able to create, the individuals that we invest in them together. And I think, to be honest, if she wasn't in my life, I think there I think all men still fights the young man that is in them. And I think we all older men still fight the want to chase women, the want to party. And, as the Bible says, when I became a man, I put childish things away. And I think having a good woman in your life helps you to put childish things away. My wife, when I met her, she made all A's in college. Man, I was just happy getting by with C's. And, with her being a doctor, she couldn't make nothing less than an A. And so, man, it challenged me to get my GPA up because, man, I don't want to be looking like a fool making C's and D's while she's making all A's. But it challenged me to step my game up. And so, man, I think a woman adds so much value. Because God created it that way. Here it is that Adam had no context of what a woman was. Man, he had total intimacy, unbroken relationship with God. He had great purpose. He had a job. Man, he had a safe haven. Man, he was rocking along with God. But internally, there was something that was missing. And the Bible says, I'm going to create a helpmate for him. And, man, that helpmate, man, can be such a great blessing. And not only for young men, is valuing women. And I think if we're honest, so much of our society does not value women, through the music, through, if we want to be honest, through pornography. But at the back end of all that, it's men. And we as men have to be the one that does not feed that devaluing of women. Because, man, all of us in here, I guarantee you, we went around the room and talked about the sacrifices of our mothers. Man, how much, our mom meant to us. And so, man, these young women are someone's future mom. They're someone's future spouse. But what hurts me is that their image of what it means to be a woman of great value and virtue is not portrayed in what we see or hear through our music and through our imagery. And I say this last point, I just kind of want to circle that back, some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. I was watching Building a Black America on PBS by Henry Gates. Man, phenomenal educational piece. And one of the things that I'm always taken back at when I'm looking at the late 1800s, early 1900s, how many sophisticated people of color, from pharmacists to doctors to business owners, entrepreneurs, how they dressed, how they worked together. And that when I see that, I see the identity of who we were as people of color, of navigating and becoming. And I think the imagery of what we see in our society is not who we are. And I know for me, growing up in the 90s, I had the Cosby Show, I had Different World, I had those type of images that inspired me to want to go to college, that inspired me to want to have a professional wife, that inspired me to want to have kids. And so, man, we have to find a way in the Black community to provide visual aids of billboards of what individual as young men and young women can become in our society.
Y'all embarrassing me on my own channel. Y'all are bringing wisdom. Like, listen, I'm just going to let it marinate. The chat is on fire about everything that you gentlemen are bringing to the floor. It's funny that we're talking about women. I kind of got myself in a little rut a couple of weeks ago in YouTube. I think I made the mistake of thinking men would view me in my conversation the way my husband views me. Absolutely not. And I learned that very quickly, a misstep. And I had a moment, honey, without my husband, because normally he would back me up, but he was not there. And I got myself in a little tiff and a little debate, nothing that I could handle, but I went toe to toe, heel for heel, and I came back. It took me 2 weeks to tell my husband what happened because number one, I thought he was going to ask me to come off YouTube. So we guys just know, we know when we're not supposed to be outside, playing outside. Just like, oh, I don't need to let him know because he may say, you cannot go outside anymore. But when I finally told him, I said, listen, this is what happened on YouTube. And they're calling me King Sheba because they say I'm the boss in my household. And he says, it's a compliment. You're the smartest one. You're the smartest woman I ever knew. It's a compliment. And a lot of men, their egos are here. And if they would just come here, they would elevate past here. It's a compliment. He said, imagine being able to sing or write or compose or whatever you can do and not doing it. Or somebody asking you not to do it because you're a woman. Or somebody asking you not to do it because you're a man. Because they wanted to do it. And he said, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. And not because you're right, because you helped me think outside the box of a man. You challenged me in so many ways that I'm the best man that I could have ever become, right? And in both ways. So I think this is a very beautiful conversation to legacy, where women fit in, where you gentlemen believe they fit, as opposed to where they don't fit, and also the outside noise to what other people think. So with that being said, I'm going to go to Trill and then back to Tony. Trill, when it comes to your legacy, how does a woman complement that? Or does she even complement that?
I would say definitely she the inspiration for the legacy. I think, I tell my wife all the time, she's my parole officer. And she laughs and it's like it shakes her head because she already know how I am. But what I mean by that is she provides grounding for me. Fact is, man, we are driven by ego a lot of times, and it gets us to heights of success, but it also gets us in trouble as well. You know what I'm saying? But when you out here moving and making decisions, and you have somebody whose livelihood is dependent on you, you tend to move a little more diligently. You tend to think, 2 or 3 times before you know, the old you might have just reacted on impulse and reacted on ego. Now you got something to lose now because y'all building something together. So, your woman, I feel like should, inspire you. And if she doesn't, you with the wrong person. She got to be willing to roll up her sleeves and, get in them trenches with you at the end of the day. She got to trust the vision. She got to trust what it is that y'all going for. But when you find a woman who's on board like that and who's willing to get in them trenches for, you know what, baby, let's go 12 months, roll up our sleeves, get dirty. We ain't spending no money. We about to save up for this. Or we about to do what we got to do for that. You got you a rider. You got to hold on to that for dear life. Because a lot of these women, like I said, man, are controlled by ego. And a lot of times it take us losing a great woman to go out here and realize most of these women ain't worth a goddamn thing compared to the one that you had at home who was, again, invested into the vision and willing to help you see it through. So, it's a inspiration thing. It's a grounding thing. It's a seeing, watching your six. Women see things differently than men. A lot of times men are pretty aloof, especially in terms of social. To whereas your woman can say, well, baby, you might need to watch that because, her intentions are saying this. So you might need to pay attention to him. His intentions are saying that. You may want to pay a little more attention to that. To us as a man, like I say, we move with ego, man. Can't nobody make me do nothing I don't want to do. I don't care, whatever. But again, she may give you a certain play or give you a certain, a vision or perspective that you just didn't factor in. And that could be critical to your success. If you look at the most successful men in America, most of them are married. And not only married, but been married a long damn time. You go down that billionaire list, you go down that millionaire list, it's gonna be way more men that are married than who aren't. And I feel like there's a reason for that. That's not coincidence. So, especially once you factor in kids into play, because she's gonna be, responsible for guiding your child. So again, her importance is, I'm not sure you can really quantify it. But I just tell young dudes all the time, when you run into it, hold on to it for dear life. And I know, man, the game be calling. And I know more times than not, when you run into that woman, it's typically in the middle of a 50-point game at like halftime. And you say, Coach, I don't want to come out just yet. God damn it, I'm on a roll. I'm trying to go for the hundo. But that's typically when you run into the woman that you're supposed to be with. But when you not mature, you will talk coach into putting you back in that game and mess around and lose that. But once you hit a certain maturity level, you realize, man, being with her is the win. You already put up the numbers that you can put up. Like I say, my single Hall of Fame jersey is in the rafters. You can't add to it anymore. Now it's time to build something that's worth sustaining, something that has some substance, something that I'm going to be able to look back on and be proud of. You know what I'm saying? So your woman plays a very, very, very critical role in that. So yeah, I tell men all the time, man. Most of the benefit that a woman provides is intangible. It's a feeling. It's an inspiration. She pushes you to kind of see things that you didn't see and reach heights that you may not have reached. I say it all the time. If you take women off of this earth, most men would be happily broke. It's just honest, because most of us are low maintenance. Without our woman, we eating Wingstop, we eating, Whataburger. A bunch of Texas people on the panel, you already know what I'm talking about on that end. You know what I'm saying? But she gonna push you to go try that, sushi, or push you to go take the trip to this country that you never even thought. What? You want to go where? Okay, let's just go see, and you end up having the best time of your life. Even TV shows. Us, leave it up to us. Men gonna watch 4 channels and 3 of them is ESPN. But when you got a woman with you, she gonna be watching some shit and you might walk by me like, what is that you watching? But you walk by 2-3 times and you be like, hey baby, who is Dan? What's their situation? I seen them argue last night. You done got invested into something that you would have never, thought to even watch. So, just in summary, man, like women play a key role in terms of building your legacy. And as men, we got to treat her as such.
True. I think you got a wife on the panel that says you sound like her husband. We don't want to get nobody in trouble tonight. Tiffany Whitlow says, yes, you sound like Lou. What the hell is that you're watching? So I think we can all relate. And with that being said, I would like to pass the mic to Tony. What are your thoughts? The legacy of a man when it comes to a woman. How important is your woman to your legacy?
So it's vital. I mean, I'm not married to my first wife, but I'm definitely married to the last woman I'll ever be married to. And there were 2 things I had to do in order to be able to appreciate the woman that I've been blessed with. The first thing is I had to take my mother off the pedestal that I created for her and allow her to sit on the pedestal that she earned. I had to forgive her for the missteps and the shortcomings that she had as a young mother. And I had to be okay with that. I created in her someone that she could never be. And by virtue of that, I held women to a standard that even my mother couldn't reach because it all existed in my head. I had to be okay with the fact that her best wasn't always the best. That although she did the best that she could, it didn't always serve me. And that was a very hard and difficult thing for me to do because the reality is, although she's my mother and I love her and no one will ever take her place, there were times that she put me in harm's way. And there were times I met women who wanted better for me than my mother could provide for me. But because I held my mother to a standard that she couldn't reach, I didn't allow those women who were trying to exceed that standard even try. So that was the first thing. The second thing is I had to learn the true meaning of the word accountability. We've talked about Adam and Eve. The reality is that Adam was not punished for eating anything. Adam was punished for disobeying God. The reality is that Eve never heard anything about the God never told Eve, don't eat of the fruit. He never spoke to Eve. You know what I mean? He trusted Adam would make sure that Eve understood the laws that were given to him, the commandments that were given to him, and so for me, in my interpretation, and I'm not a theologian by no means, but I really believe, based on the way I read the Bible, that Adam was punished not for disobeying God, not for eating the apple per se, but for taking counsel in a situation that he was already given authority. And that, to me, when it comes to being a accountable man, just because it wasn't your fault doesn't mean it's not your problem. Just because you didn't do it doesn't mean that you're not supposed to fix it. Just because it wasn't on you doesn't mean that it doesn't rely on you. So in my situation with my wife, we don't play whose fault it was. We start our arguments or our disagreements with me saying, this is on me. Whatever transpired, I'm ultimately accountable for how it turned out. So let's speak on solution instead of blame. But when God came to Adam, Adam's immediate response was, hey, it wasn't me. It was that woman you sent me. I ain't, you know what I mean? But that's not what accountability looks like. And so once I learned those two things, that my mother is not a saint and that I have to be accountable, then I allowed my wife to move in the space that God created for her. Now we're both operating in both purpose and passion. For instance, my wife has an MBA. Well, I don't handle the money. We sit down once a month. She shows me her spreadsheets. I pretend like I understand them. She tells me how much I'm able to spend this month on, on my recreational spending. And what I'm watching is our bank account grow. I'm watching my credit score shoot up. I'm watching these opportunities that are created because I'm allowing her to express her gifts in our marriage. And when it comes to submission, we both submit to our marriage, which allows me to have a leadership position because ultimately I'm accountable for our marriage, but I'm not responsible for everything that happens in it. And that's freeing. And so when I come to her and say, babe, I want to launch this personal chef business. I want to start cooking for celebrities. I want to start doing, yeah, we got it. Let me put it in the budget. And so she not only becomes the co-signer of my dreams, she allows my dreams to be the subject of her prayers. And if you're a biblical person, you understand that one, the prayers of the righteous, that part. And then two, when one or two or more are touching and agreeing, so it's created for us to understand the power of a woman. And once we submit to that power and submit to that understanding that you have someone who has a vested interest in your success and that we are here to collaborate and not to compete, that's when your marriage goes to the next level. And I wish that I learned this in my 20s and in my early life with my son's mother, but I didn't. I was too busy trying to prove my manhood instead of right now, I'm living in it. And in doing so, I submitted to God, I submit to my marriage, and I don't even have to talk to my wife about submission because we understand the roles that we play. But when God comes to me and says, why did you do that? I put my wife behind me where she belongs, not behind me in a subservient matter, but behind me in a protective matter and say, God, that was on me. Whatever she did it under my authority because I'm her husband.
That's deep. But I also heard you say, in being where you are, it wasn't just you and your wife. It was a tough conversation mentally you had to have about your mother.
Oh, I mean, I'm telling you that, Daryl, that I love that song, but it's a problematic one. We love to put our mother, even though you were a crack fiend mother, you always was a black queen mother. Can you be both? I don't know. But I had to reconcile in the idea that my mother wasn't always her best. And that's not her fault. But if I look at her through rose-colored glasses, it skews the way I look at every other woman. And I'm holding women to a standard that my mother, who in my mind is the standard, has never met. And so now I don't have to argue with my mother and my wife. You know, I see brothers go through this all the time, especially young brothers. You know, I'm choosing who sits in the front seat, who gets served first. We don't have those conversations. You know what I mean? Because when I leave and cleave, it's very easy for me to do that because I understand I'm leaving someone who had an obligation, and I'm cleaving to someone who had a choice. And to me, there's a big difference between those two.
And I want to come back to that because I think that's a very tough subject. And I think it's only fair for a lot of Black boys and their mothers when we talk about the state of where we are with single parent households, Black moms, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. When we think about Black communities, there's a probably 85%. Or maybe is it a little bit lower? I could be wrong, but let's just rest on that. Think about that. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to go in the right order. So Lou, when it comes to your legacy, and we're going to go back to Samson and then Daryl, but Lou, when it comes to your legacy, Tiffany, go on mute. Tiffany, don't harass this man.
No, I mean, I feel like it's important, you know, number one, to have a strong woman. They always say that he that finds a woman finds a good thing. My thing is that, to me, from day one, when you go down on that knee to propose to that woman, that's your legacy starting at that point in time. Why? Because that's the woman that you choose to have your kids and to be in your life for the rest of your life. Like Terry said, this is my second marriage. My first marriage was what it was. You know, I was very young and I was learning. You learn as you go through life. Like I tell some people, you have book smarts and you actually have wisdom. Wisdom comes with experience. You can gain knowledge all day from reading a book, but sometimes going through experience and just going through life in itself, you learn to deal with situations, but also learn a lot of stuff about yourself. Going back to the question when talking about the legacy, once again, as I was saying, I feel like the woman is very key. There's no question. But as Bethel said, I think you have to provide direction in that legacy and what you expect and what you want to see from yourself, what you want to see from your family, and also how you want these things to go when it comes to, hey, babe, I need your support in this. And to me, at the end of the day, when you go to your wife and you tell her, I need your support, a lot of times when you're already on the same page and you know for a fact, this is who I want in my life, you don't even have to wait for an answer. She's already ready to go. And that's my biggest thing, is understanding when you drop to your knee, you better know for a fact you got somebody that got your back. You shouldn't have to go through a situation and say, is she really going to support me? Your legacy is already being written. It's already written. All we're doing is truly executing the path of what God has already written for us, just being real. What we expected from kids to house to family to whatever it is, Bethel, you can tell me. You know it. It's one of those things where you had the opportunity to go play sports. You took advantage of it. You took advantage of every opportunity. You sacrificed a lot, but that was your story. Everybody has a journey. Everybody has a story, and everybody goes about it very differently. But we still come back to that one thing: is what legacy are you leaving? And we have to understand truly, do we all really know what legacy is? Do we all really understand when we say leaving a legacy? Does that mean that this is my imprint on life? This is what I'm doing for my family? Or is it generational wealth? Because my thing is, there could be men that never get married, but they leave an imprint and they leave a legacy on individuals that continue to carry that legacy forward from the perspective of, this person made an impact on my life, so now I'm going to go make an impact on 10 more people's lives. Now you have a legacy that continues to give, but I still feel like at the end of the day, when you're talking about my individual legacy, 100%, I want my wife to be on board with it and understand what we're doing, because at the end of the day, life is not guaranteed for me. I could go tomorrow, but if my wife understands my legacy, I guarantee you she's going to fight to make sure that happens. So for me, at the end of the day, if I'm not here, she ain't here. Just being real. It is very key to have a strong woman to help fight for that legacy that you want, that you envision, and that you're executing on.
That was pretty strong. Would it be safe to say that's an alignment with similar to what Bethel said? Do you both kind of share the same sentiment?
I agree, but at the same time, I differ because of the fact of, like I say, once again, if I leave tomorrow, who cares that legacy for? It can't just be me solely executing on this piece. We've got to walk step by step. And that's why I agree with Chauncey as well, too. I think we all are different, but there are blended approaches that we could take to get to the same end result. But we have to make sure we do it the right way. Because I guarantee you, even after this conversation, Bethel may go back and be like, well, damn, maybe it's just the fact of the words that I use, because my perspective is very much in line with how we're looking at it. This is just how I presented it to everybody else. I mean, that's just being real. I always tell people we have to be careful with how we utilize words, because the way it's perceived to people is very different versus the way you're trying to project it out. So be careful with your word selection. And it's not saying that, Bethel, you were wrong in what you said, because believe me, everybody has their perspective. But at the end of the day, I do 100% feel like the woman has a very strong piece in what we do. Is it the end result? No, it's not. Is it the final say so? No, it's not, because our legacy is our legacy. But once you bring that woman into the fold, your legacy becomes our legacy once again.
Bethel, would you like to respond to that before we go to Samson?
Yes, I think because I think your background plays a huge role in how you view these things, right? And what I mean by that is, if I've been making decisions for myself for a very, very long time, like, I mean, I literally been making decisions for myself since I was like 5 years old. I grew up with nothing but women. I got 4 sisters and a mother. Grew up with nothing but women. And so for me, my perspective is different when it comes to this. I didn't grow up with an inspirational woman to inspire me to, do the things that I do. My mom was too busy trying to raise all 5 of us. So she wasn't inspiring me when it came to my sports and things like that. So for me, it was like, okay, I know I'm the one, because I'm the only son she has. I know I'm the one. So I'm going to go out here and do this anyway. I'm going to keep doing what I do anyway. So when I say about legacy, I have 2 different things when it comes to legacy. I have legacy through my children, and I have legacy that I leave through other people. So I understand that clearly. So for me, when it comes to my wife, obviously, let me be clear, my wife don't need me financially. My wife is a chief, she's a chief, whatever she called the thing is, she's an attorney. But she is the top attorney at one of the largest oil companies in the world. My wife didn't need me financially, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want to marry someone who needed me financially. I wanted someone who can understand when it comes to these things, this is what we got to build on. I came into the marriage with money. So you come into the marriage bringing something to the table that we can build on. But now at this point, I got us. I don't need you help building me. I got this. You can relax now. I don't need another strong woman. I married we have enough strong Black women that don't get rescued anymore, right? So you can see a Black woman on the street getting slapped around, and people are like, man, that's sad. And they pull out a phone and video it, because we preach this strong message to our women versus like, hey, relax. Allow yourself to be taken care of. Allow yourself to be a damsel in distress so somebody can come to your aid. I don't need another strong one. I grew up around them, right? It's okay for my woman to relax because I got her. I got her. So it's okay. So the things that I talk to my wife about, we have open and honest dialogue. We have open and honest conversations, and we're able to talk about how we really feel about things, and we're able to grow from there. Because if we're not honest about somebody's going to be getting cheated if we're not being honest, right? I'm going to be honest because I don't want us to be cheated. And she going to be honest because that's the space that we have. And to be clear, we've been married almost 14 years, right? Been together 16. So it's like we do our thing, but we have these conversations, and we have these honest conversations with each other, and it allows us to have real growth and real honest outcomes that we can achieve. But your background plays a lot into that. If I don't need yes, my woman can speak inspirational words to me, but I'm on my purpose. I'm on my mission. And when you know who you are at the core, and you know what your purpose is, you go stay on your purpose. You go stay on your mission. My kids are set up through trust. My kids are set up fine. My legacy is going to be lived out regardless. I'm in the financial world. I understand how to lead stuff the way white folks, the wealthiest people in the world, I know how they play the game. I'm in their game. So I know how to leave stuff set up for my children to be exercised if I'm here or not, if my wife here or not. I get it. it's going to be done regardless because I wrote it out that way. I set it up that way. That when I said I had 10 generations planned out, I mean that. My great kids, they'll be like, dang, man, it was my grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather 10 generations ago who set us up like this. When you look up at families who have money, like, and it's not, I'm not even moved by money. I'm moved more by what I can leave in other people's lives to help them. That's a legacy to me. I just have the resources so I can do that more and do it more for more people. But at the end of the day, that's what I'm talking about. My vision, like you said, Adam, God gave him the vision. It was his vision. He gave him the vision. So he's supposed to execute the vision. It wasn't her. He gave the vision to, gave it to him. So my thing is, I have the vision and I got to be the one to execute it. I got to be the one to set it up because it wasn't given to my wife. It was given to me. She's here to aid me in that. That's what I said. The Bible didn't say help make. It said help meet. And that word meet in Hebrew means made for him. I used to be a preacher too. Queen knows this.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
I'm saying,
religion, but go ahead.
these things, I will never pander to anybody. I'm gonna always be honest with you. So it's like we all have different perspectives. It's like I'm looking at this phone, and if I tell you this phone got my 2 children on the front of it, I'm looking at 2 children. You see the back of my phone, you say, no, that's not it. But we're looking at the same phone. It's a different perspective, right? But it's the same phone, right? So it's like it's not right or wrong. It's about perspective. And I think we don't ask enough questions when we have these type of conversations. Like, what do you mean by that, right? Give somebody a chance to clarify what they're talking about instead of saying, well, this is the thing. No, ask me a further question. I promise you'll get the honest answer, right? It's going to be that every time. So like, all I'm saying is, as men, it'll cheat your wife not being honest with her. You cheating them. If you can't be stand on your 10 toes and we talked about emotion and vulnerability earlier. If you can't be vulnerable, that's called honesty. You can't be vulnerable with your woman, then what is she there for? If you're scared to be honest with your wife, what is she there for? Who you marrying? What you with her for if you're scared to be honest with her, right? I don't want nobody around me that I can't be honest with, if I can't be myself with. So I'm just saying, like, we got to take that into account. I never said my wife wasn't important. What I'm saying is to my legacy, because how I built it out, I was already on my mission. I was already on my purpose. So let's be honest. That's how I am. Like, I'm not going to change that because I know what I'm here for. And make sure my wife and my kids will be good if I'm here or not. If my wife here or not, my children who are my seed will be, I made sure that they were good. And that's what I mean by that. Yes, she's important. I ain't never diminished her importance, but I'm saying as it relates to my mission that I'm on, I got to be the one to execute it because it was given to me. It was my vision. That's what I mean.
It's beautiful. And my dogs would decide to wrestle in the background. So please forgive the background noise because they're going at it. I think y'all got them riled up, but please forgive me. I think it's a beautiful conversation. I think it's a beautiful exchange. I just want to pause in that. Samson, what are your thoughts?
Lots been said. So I'm typically wordy on this topic, so I'm going to be short. I think Mr. TSU mentioned earlier that what is our legacy? And I think Jay-Z said it best on 444, generational wealth. And I think a lot of that is missing within our families. Are we thinking beyond us? Are we thinking for the generations to come? So I think the 3 acronyms that come to mind when I'm speaking about this is GOD, God only delivers, GPA, grade point average, and then ROI, return on investment. And are we thinking about how we can allow God to lead us through education to get to a point of investing for ourselves and for those around us to yield a healthy return? Our money should be making money. We all have nice kicks, nice threads, nice cars. I know that I only started to connect dots financially once I let go of some of my material items, and I started investing in real estate, started investing in the stock market, and that's when I started to see my financial wealth just multiply. And that's what I wanted to kind of, talk about real quick was I think every man wants a woman that can inspire him and that can motivate him. Who doesn't want a power couple? Who doesn't want a husband that is a champion and also a cheerleader, and vice versa? So I think that it's super healthy for a male to want that, for a female to want that in a relationship, to grow together. My mom said to us when we were growing up, my grandmother said it too, don't be broker than the 10 Commandments. Don't be broker than the 10 Commandments. And when you think about it, it's just the one thing that stays broke, the 10 Commandments. But she says always value the penny, because pennies make sense. And she spelled it out, CENTS, as well as like common sense, SENSE. And if you do that, they'll build to become dollars, and dollars will take care of themselves. I know a lot of us have these kicks, right? The Air Force Ones, the Jordans, how much do they cost, especially the vintage ones? But how many of us are really owning stocks like Amazon or Apple or Tesla? 3 companies that may be on Mars. The first 3 companies on Mars probably are Amazon, Tesla, and Apple. And I think Amazon is $100 right now. Apple is at 150, and Tesla's at 200. I think close of business today. And so these are things that we could gift our nephews and nieces, our sons and daughters, our aunts and uncles. Anybody that's not in the stock market, we can set up accounts for them and show them how their money can make money just by buying 1 share, and they have a piece of that. Forrest Gump did it way back in the day, buying Apple. I'm corny like that, Quinn. You got to know I'm bringing up old movie references, but I just think that there's an opportunity for us to embrace financial literacy, because they're not teaching us it. They're not giving us that in school, and it's too late sometimes when you're only learning about it for the first time in college. It should be elementary, junior high, high school, having this type of foundation. And I think that's what the true legacy is generational wealth beyond your present day. And if you can do that with a woman by your side, then all the better for the family, all the better for the future generations that have your last name.
I receive that. So beautifully stated. Daryl, when it comes to a woman, your legacy, how important is she?
So for me, I'm not married, so it's hard for me to even really speak about this in like a really quantifiable, because I haven't experienced it, right? I have children, and I have a woman here that I take care of, but we're not together. I did it to make sure that my daughter is raised in a 2-parent household, and also to make sure that she has access to her daughter as well. But I will say this. For me, family is everything, right? I take my family very, very, very seriously. Very seriously. And for me, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do in my real life if it wasn't for the mother of my children. If it wasn't for my sisters. I mean, I can't go into depth about how much they genuinely helped me as a role of sister, the role of auntie, right? I can't tell you how many times when I'm caught slipping and I don't, certain information, they find it for me, right? And we all do everything we can to protect each other in every situation possible. So for me, my family is so important. My mother, my aunties, One of my uncles just passed away, so I'll be in Detroit this weekend to support my auntie and her husband passing away. And all of us rallying together to pay for the funeral, pay for all kind of different stuff, because that's just what family do. You know what I mean? I told y'all earlier, we had one of my cousins, he was locked up from 2012 and he just got out. But the family took care of each other. So his children understand love. His children don't, got an idea that, he was away and nobody cared about him. You know what I mean? All three of his sons, I mean. So for me, when I get a wife, I hope that she takes family as much as, as serious as I take it. Because if I'm going to be devoted to you, and I will be, the only thing I ask is reciprocity, right? And at the core of that reciprocity, it has to be loyalty and devotion. I have to know that you're loyal to this family, even if I'm not here, right? I was studying the Asian community. This last thing I'm gonna say, like when I studied the Asian community, some of my friends are Asian here in East Lansing. When the father passes away, they put like a picture up on the wall and all this kind of stuff, almost like a shrine. And they teach the children the ways of the father and the grandfather, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And my family is kind of the same. Like we really honor each other. I really appreciate the women in my life for a lot of reasons. I can spend this like the whole day talking about the things that they do for me. So I really do appreciate all the women, even you, Queen Sheba, B. Taylor, people who I've met. Because like you said earlier, YouTube can be a very triggering space. Very, 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 very triggering. And I know my triggers. And I know that once I get triggered, it's raps. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody who, like even now, the brothers on the panel, this is the good side of me, right? Once I'm triggered, and I'm learning to work on this, it go dark. It go very, 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 very dark. And I'm thankful to have people like my sisters, Queen Sheba, B. Taylor, a few different people in this space and off camera to come to me and ask me, just, are you okay? You feel me? And y'all don't understand how big of a role that plays, and just
always in the background though, never in front.
Always in the background. And I really appreciate that.
But always in the background.
Yes, ma'am. And that's very important. That's very important. And thank you all, genuinely.
So I think Bethel, you can attest. I've always been a firecracker ever since high school. Have I not?
Yes. We went to a school where she was one of the top athletes at the school, so she had all the, all the trappings of being the top athlete at our high school at that time. So yeah, she's always been that for sure.
And when we talk about athleticism, I took a different route. When we think about Big Lou and baseball, I went to college on a collegiate scholarship academically first. And then athletic scholarship second. So my wits have always led, but I played volleyball, right, in college. So when you think about the stereotype that they place us in, I really like this panel because we show breakout roles by way of podcast, by way of spiritual coach, by way of baseball, mental health advocate, former NFL, now finance, military background, creative art through Culinary. And I think each of us shows that the sky's the limit. I have one more question for you, but I think the audience also have questions. So we drop the link. We want to make sure that you are a real person and you're not coming to troll. If you're not camera ready, you can still click the link and drop your questions in the private chat. Okay. So my final question for each of you before we wrap up is, I'll start with Jackson. Art Jackson, what would you like to be remembered for when it comes to your legacy?
I am big on the way you treat people. It's simple, really. We talk about the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. I would love a goal to make sure that whenever someone speaks of me when I'm gone, they speak of me in a fond manner. That it doesn't bring, a bitter taste to the mouth or ill ill thoughts. He knew me as a person who treated the way they would, treat. I'm a simple type of dude, by any means. So, just simply, just like Brother Darrell said, family, treat me the way, you want to be treated, and I'll treat you just the same. So is that simple for me.
Very well stated. Thank you. Tony Massey, what would you like to be remembered for?
I think for me, it's the impact that I made on people and the authenticity that I was able to relay in the life that I lived. Again, I come from a very matriarchal family. And so because there's not a lot of men in my family, a lot of the men in my family have had to kind of fill the gaps, stand in the gap where men should be, but they aren't. And so what means a lot to me is that the women that I encounter, whether in my family or in my wife's family, they're able to count on me. And thereby I earn a certain level of they almost co-sign me for the young men that follow them. And I think that's the difficult path that we have to navigate, because there aren't a lot of men in the spaces that they're supposed to be. Unfortunately, a lot of us who want to be in those spaces have to be escorted in by women. And so that's why I think it's so fascinating where men try to stake claim to their manhood while ascribing to misogynistic tropes. You can't do that. I remember a conversation that I had with my father when I was 16. He kept talking trash about my mother, and I was like, bro, all due respect, you wouldn't let me talk about your mama like that. Stop talking about my mama like that. You know what I mean? And so what I want to be remembered by is my ability to bridge that gap, because this whole men do this, women do this thing it's not productive. We just need to be able to support one another and see past each other's circumstances and recognize that we all want better for ourselves. We just don't all know how to get better for ourselves. So if I can be a facilitator to help someone get to where God intended for them to be, because if the blessings were water, the pipe gets blessed. And I just want to be the pipe. I'll end there.
We receive that. Thank you. And really quickly, before we go to Trill, regarding what he would like to be remembered for, I just want to give a shout out to Congo English. Thank you. He said Trill. Understood. That's that crew language, y'all. I ain't even trying to translate. They got their own little. And by the way, can we get the link in the chat for the new bomber jackets that the cruise season has just dropped? Trill, you want to take over?
Yeah, it's all good. Cruiseseason.com, man. It's we pulled all of the other merch down. So this one right there is the only one up. Make sure y'all tap in, man. Cruiseseason.com. Everybody keep asking, man, where can I get the jacket? Where can I get the jacket? So yeah,
And
we appreciate it.
I have a special needs brother that loves jackets, so I'm going to get him one for Christmas. He's going to love it. It's going to replace his Batman jacket that we got him last year. So y'all go ahead and get that. That's going to be a great stocking stuffer.
That's
and it's very affordable, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. In terms of how I want to be remembered, man, that's a question that I struggle with a lot. I don't know, man, but I guess I still got a lot of life to live, so it's hard to kind of say right now. But I just want to be remembered for just being a real one. That's it. And what I mean by that is being a man of my word, man. Doing what I say I was gonna do. I want people to look at my resume and say that he was a stand-up guy. Trill ain't never and that's one thing that I'm proud of. I speak about that all the time. This resume. When people speak about me, can't nobody walk in this earth say Trill cheated me, Trill stole from me, Trill snaked me, Trill finessed me. None of that. It's all up and up. Matter of fact, I done showed more love and I done gave out more to people than what they was actually worth, just so I could remain solid. So yeah, just being a solid individual, man. One, and then two, making it to where my kid's life could be easier based solely on my name. And that's my idea of what legacy is. You know, if it's setting up infrastructure to make their lives easier when I'm gone, or my wife. You know, just to make their lives easier. But you know, I feel like if my child's life is not easier based solely on my name when I'm gone, then I failed her. That's how I feel. So yeah, those two things would probably top the list. But like I say, man, I still got a lot of life to live. You know, my passions and aspirations change by the day. You know, when you're trying to build this brand up, and you know, we done a hell of a job building it so far. But I feel like we still got a lot to do in that aspect, and just helping people. You know, when it turns out our fan base, man, we got a wide range of ages who tap into us, man. 17 years old. I done got stopped in restaurants by 55-year-old women. Like, just, hey man, I love what y'all doing, man. Keep doing that. Da, 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 da. Y'all help me in this situation, or y'all help my son in this situation, or hey man, I was thinking about ending my life, bro, and I tapped into y'all pod, and that just, it made me laugh for just that moment, and it gave me some hope, gave me some inspiration to keep going. So, you know, that's what I get the most fulfillment out of these days, man. It's just always just helping people. So yeah, if I had to sum it up, it would be those three things, man. Just being remembered as being a real one, making my kids' life and my wife's life easier based solely on my name, and you know, just helping as many people as I can. That's how I want to be remembered.
It's funny you talk about finances. At age, I'm gonna say that. Well, I'm not gonna say no age. Let me. I have to think about that. Hold up, now. I'm a woman now. Y'all almost caught me slipping. However, there was a particular age in my life where somebody passed away in my family that was indirectly related to me, and the person that was over this person did not have life insurance. So you know how we do. We pick up the phone as Black folks. You got a little bit of this and that you can contribute. And at my tender age, I contributed $700, which was a lot for my tender age. And I remember a white gentleman says, I've been trying to sell them life insurance for the longest. And all it would have taken was $30 a month. And you guys could have been covered. And that man talked to me about the importance of building a legacy. He says, when you leave, your family's going to miss you. Most definitely. But it's very important that they don't miss you financially, because that adds to the burden. And I'm going to just leave that there. I don't want to go into detail about life insurance, legacy, finances, and Bethel is the person that you can go to for that. It's very important that they do not miss you financially. They're going to have a tough time in and of themselves getting over you not being here. But the last thing you want to leave them with is, damn, how am I going to make the rent, the mortgage, the light bill? That's a tough place to be in. And with that being said, Samson, what do you want to be remembered for?
Remove the gum from my mouth. When I was a younger professional, I wanted to open doors for people that weren't used to being in power positions or leadership positions in corporate America, and then into the other sector within government, to make their own mark as a professional and as a breadwinner in their family, male or female, because it changes your entire future just by opening a door, providing an opportunity for someone to provide for themselves and build. So I said, I want to continue to do this. I want to continue to hire and promote and push people up as professionals. But then the older I got, and I'm going on 50 soon, I started finding reward in serving and giving back and building up communities that are underserved or underrepresented. And it started in the mid 90s. I had an opportunity to study abroad in the Dominican Republic And while I was there learning Spanish, I crossed the border into Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and I was able to dig irrigation ditches for a very, very poor community. It was through a Peace Corps assignment. I wasn't part of the Peace Corps, but I was working with the Peace Corps team that was there, dealing with water irrigation and issues. Kids just didn't have clean water to drink. It changed my life. So ever since then, I always looked for opportunities to hold my own clothing drives, pick up trash within my communities. I don't care if it's a nice suburb or not, there's still people littering everywhere you go, right? Supporting a soup kitchen, helping out someone homeless on the side of the road. They're at every red light, right? On every corner throughout America. And so now it's just about that. I want to be remembered for opening my pocket to those in need, family, friends, colleagues, mentees, perfect strangers, all children of God, and be remembered by that. Just giving whatever I can give to make a difference in someone's life.
Samson, I'm going to ask you a question completely off topic. Do you have children?
No children? Nope. Not yet. I look forward to it. I want to get married first, but I look forward to it.
Well, you're going to be a good daddy. Okay. Next, Big Lou. What would you like to be remembered for?
My biggest thing, number one, is to make sure that I prepare my boys and give them the traits and the tools that they need to be successful in life. To me, that's what's going to carry the legacy forward. Number two is to make sure that I create that generational wealth for them. And when I say for them, is to give them a platform and give them a jump off to help them basically carry everything forward. As they always say, you teach a person to fish, they can eat forever. If I keep supplying the fish, it's only going to last so long. So my thing is number one, to make sure, like I say, to give them just a baseline understanding of what it is to get through life, to be a Black successful young man in this society. And then after that, it's touching lives and changing lives. Whoever it is, however it is, that is for sure an impact I want to make before I leave this world.
And I think that you've done by way of your videos, different parents that entrust you with their children. The moments I've seen you on the field, salute. Keep up the good work. Daryl, what would you like to be remembered for?
You know, I was sitting here thinking about that, and I have like a will already made or whatever, and the song that I told my family I won't play at my funeral is a song by Beyonce. Shout out to all the Virgos. And the song is called I Was Here, right? And in the song, she talks about her family, her community, her art form, her work, all these things I want to be remembered for. I want to be remembered for somebody who like my imprint, my decisions, and how it affected my family. I wanted to have ripples through time. I wanted to be, like, for example, I don't know what my sons and daughters are going to become, but I hope that they take my passions and run with them in the same ways that a young Tupac ran with the passions of his father, Billy Garland, and his mother, Afeni Shakur, who was one of the first female Black Panthers that would speak out nation to nation. These are the things that I hope that they would take on. And that's pretty much all I can really care for. Like the financial burden, I never had one because my father passed on so much information to me, and not just information, but money and how to manage it. Right. He lived in Detroit still to this day, and he taught me about the Detroit Land Bank years ago. He taught me about keeping my credit right years ago. Even when I went to school and I collected debt, he helped me with a group called Lexington Law Firm. So the ripples of his decisions will affect my daughter 20 years from now, where I can tell her how to open her own business. I can tell her how to keep her credit up and the importance of that, and how to maintain what your grandfather started. So that's all I really care about is my family, the community, and making sure that they don't struggle ever again. That's all.
That's beautiful. Bethel, what would you like to be remembered for?
For me, the legacy that I'm leaving for my children and great grandchildren is, my floor is your ceiling now, right? So you don't have to start at zero because I done built it out for you, right? So when it comes to wealth, there's a difference between wealth management and wealth building. Well, this is a completely different thing, right? And I think we have to understand that. And so for me, I set my family, my children up where it doesn't matter what they do in life, right? They might not want to be, a private investment banker like me. They may not want to, but I structured a family bank. So it doesn't matter what they choose to do. The money stays in the family. You don't have to go to the bank and borrow. You can borrow from the family bank. You don't have to go to somebody and borrow something. You can come to the family bank. It stays cycled in. So so if you think about the Rockefeller, right? Think about how they left their family. We still go by their legacy to this day and don't even know it, right? The way we learn math is because of them, right? Everybody else does the other system. We still on the decimal system, and everybody else does the metric system. We're different. It's because the way the legacy was set up, and that's how I study people like that to make sure that when I leave this place, the legacy I leave in other people's lives, because I teach you the game. This game was given to me so I can teach it to others. That's a legacy I leave in their life. When we talk about real wealth, I'm not somebody that just heard about it. I live this for real. I just look like this. I just really just look like this. And I'm cool with it. You'll never see me riding around in no fancy car. I don't have to do that because what I'm doing is doing something for my people inside on the low, because you have to. Because when you know their information, like they know their information, and you're benefiting from it, you got to be solid about how you do it and who you share it with. But I'm here to share the information with people who are open to hear it. And that's a legacy that I want people to remember. He's going to tell you the truth. He's going to give you the game. If you listen, I'm going to tell you what it is, if you really want to know it. But my legacy for my family is create my floor is my children's ceiling. And they keep that, then their floor become their children's ceiling, and on and on and on. So they'll never have to start at scratch like we've been doing for the longest in our community. Well, like he was talking about, people die with no life insurance. You're setting your family back to zero. You're leaving your children back to zero, right? Don't leave them with debt when you die. Leave them something to build on going forward. And so my legacy is to be able to, I was gifted and given this type of opportunity, these things, and it was given for me to share. I don't care about, money is not like I said earlier, it's not a driver. It's how I help you, how I impact you. That's my legacy. What have I done in your life that made your life better, that you can pass that information on to somebody else in your life? That's the legacy for me. But money is just it's the tool. It's to provide me with the resources that I need to exercise those things for other people. So my legacy is pretty much, again, my floor is my children's ceiling. And now that to be that's our new thing. That's what we do in our family. We set legacies that way. Don't leave your children with zero. And the way I set my family up to be 100 with everybody, they can't do that. They can't start at zero. Won't be able to. It's a way to do that. So if y'all want to know how to do it, I'll tell you how to do it. But I won't tell you in front of all these people because it ain't for everybody.
You've been telling me for years. I finally got on board a couple of years ago, but I'm good to go now. And it really is important. It's a lot of things we don't talk about in the Black community. Or if we do talk about it, we be like, you trying to steal my money or scam me.
And the thing about it is, I'm going to be 100, everybody. There is so much money circulating this globe. They make you believe that there's not enough. And I can tell you for an absolute fact, I'm on the other side of the money world. I'm on the side where they actually play the game. And I'm saying there's more money circulating this globe than you can possibly believe. There are quadrillionaires on this planet that you will never hear about. You can imagine how much money that is. So if there's quadrillionaires, there's money circulating this globe, and people are trying to but that's what we do. We find places to park money. we find places to do that. So I'm saying, like, I'm here to teach the game. That's what I'm here to do for people.
And I can vouch for you. I didn't go directly through Bethel because I'm gonna tell y'all, just like y'all, I was like, you ain't gonna take my shit. And that was many years ago. And we keep it real on this channel. That was so long ago. You used to talk to me about that. But I finally found my person.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through New York life for a little bit of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're set up for life. So when we talk about legacy for the Black community, it doesn't cost a lot. You'll be shocked. You spend that at Starbucks in 2 days. When you talk about $30, $40, I'm serious. That's how little we're talking about that you can start. And then you can build and build and build. A lot of people are not here to take your money. They're here to help you set up. But with that being said, R. Jackson, what would you like to be remembered for?
First of all, I'm glad you came back to me because these brothers, boy, got me rethinking the lead. But seriously speaking, taking care of my family has always been my top priority. You know, would I get everything right while I'm here? It's not so much as a factor as how I leave things when I'm gone. You know, I try to instill in my children, just like most of us, the importance of, you know, keeping your word for one, you know, taking responsibility for your actions, treating people well, you know. So it's just like, as long as my children are a positive representation of me, I feel like I've done my job here. You know, that is very important to me.
I think that's been a general consensus of the men that I've heard, men that do have children. And it's so beautiful to hear you all express love for your children that you do have, right? Because often you hear the mothers talk about that. I don't want to hold you hostage too long. If you have questions in the chat, we've dropped a link for those of you men that need to drop. Thank you so much. I would like to say this. The audience have expressed that they want to see y'all come back with your number 2. So behind the scenes, it's Samson, because I saw you at a game and you said, thank you, baby, for buying my tickets. So there's somebody in the background. But if you would like to come back with your number 2, and I can only do 3 men, and we're going to plan it out really beautifully as a couples panel, hit me up behind the scenes. So it can be a very beautiful and positive conversation, enlightening, enhancing, and a village from both perspectives. And as my contribution to you, forget the couples, because you came tonight. If there's anything I can do for you on your channel or facilitate a conversation, because I'm very good at this, use me. That's my tie to all of you. Most importantly, thank you all. Beautiful panel of men. I appreciate you all. And if you have the extra time to stay, and if you would like to stay for a question or 2, feel free to. And if not, I know Trill got to drop. Trill, I know a lot of you probably have to drop. It's school night. Like the old folks say, it's a school night. And most importantly, thank you. We love you. We appreciate you, kings. Salute.
Hold up, let me give a shout out to my Morehouse
man.
brother, Samson.
To who? Go ahead.
Samson.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he dropped off, you know, my Morehouse brother. I can't let. Oh, I can't let that go by without giving him a shout out. So, you know, I just want to throw that in there.
To Samson?
Which I wrote. Yes, absolutely. And I mean, for the first time coming in, I'd like to really thank you, brothers, for allowing me, and you, Queen, to share your space. You know, hopefully I'll get a chance to come back and, you know, kind of agree with you all again.
Absolutely. So, audience, you don't have to be on camera. If you have a question, drop it in a chat for the panel. I need you to say question and who you would like to answer it. We're going to give you we're going to take 5 minutes to answer questions. We're going to start off with 3 questions. And if not, we're going to wrap it up. But I'll start with some of the questions that I saw come through earlier. Somebody said, what about your wife's goals and aspirations? And Bethel, I think that was for you. Does that mean anything to you when you are pursuing your own legacy so heavily? Or do her goals get lost in the background? Bethel.
I always ask the question, like, whose legacy are the children going to live out anyway, right? My wife can do whatever she wants. She's a grown woman. She can do exactly what she wants, but I'm on my purpose and I know what I'm here for. And so she can aid me in my mission and I'm cool with that. But my wife has her, again, I didn't stop my wife from aspiring to do the things she's doing. She's a chief legal counsel, one of the largest oil companies in the world. I don't stop her from doing those things. But at the end of the day, the legacy that I'm leaving, that I'm building, she sees what I'm doing, right? I'm not stopping her for doing those things. So she can have her goals and aspirations, but at the end of the day, my children are going to live out my legacy. And that's just how I see it. So she can have them. I'm not stopping them. But again, did Adam stop to aid Eve in what she was doing, or was she there to assist him? That's what I always go back to. So.
And that's real. Thank you for sharing. I'm just going to take a random question. What conflict did you encounter that could have gone left? How did you resolve that and turn it into a positive? Big Lou.
For me, coming out of HR, there are a lot of things that I could say and discuss where things were supposed to go one way and went another, especially when you're dealing with people. It's one of those things where people tend to forget that you are a human being as well. You're sitting behind in a role, and your goal is to operate and be a professional at all times. For me, it was one of those things where, you really tested me as a man. I mean, I get the fact of these are heated conversations, but at the same time, we're both men. We both put our shoes and our pants on the same way. So my thing is, at the end of the day, what can we do to make sure, and Tiff and I always talk about it, is for a second, take a breath, just breathe, and then go. Because a lot of times when we get caught up in the situation and trying to respond instantly in that moment, sometimes your emotions can get the best of you. And we as men, I'm not going to sit up there and say, I'm speaking for myself. I can't say that I can just control my emotions when they get to that point. Sometimes I can get pushed to that level and it's tough to come back from that moment, as I call it. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where, like I say, you got to understand yourself. If you know you could be pushed to that moment, just take a second and don't even allow that person to get that energy. And I think that's one thing for me is I've learned to respect and appreciate my energy, that I'm not just going to give it away to anybody, because I know I focus so hard to work on good energy. I'm not just going to jump in that pool again. So my thing is, number one, if you're going to be in my circle, if you're going to be around me, if I'm going to deal with you, you better understand what type of energy I'm bringing. I'm going to be direct, I'm going to be accountable, and I'm going to take mine and I'm going to wear it. But please believe I'm going to give it back to you the right way.
I'm glad you said that, because I did a review on you. And I said, had Big Lou taken that shot, it would have been different.
Listen, I feel him on that. Like, I feel him on that. You got to be protective of that.
What I'm talking about?
Yes.
All right. So Louis is a reality persona. And a lot of times you get tried, tested, and true, just like an athlete, just like whatever your role is. And somebody made a comment on his show. Louis had something to say behind the scenes, as a sophisticated man would, that has a lot to protect. And he says, you know what? It's a good thing I didn't take that shot, meaning a drink, because shit would have been different. So that person that he was addressing came back and said, I wish he would have taken that shot. So I did a review on that scene and I said, no, bro, don't let the smooth taste fool you. Because sometimes people let you make it with your mouth to save your ass.
Yes.
Because it would have been different had he taken that shot. And that's what you don't know. Sometimes you run your mouth so much. And this is what get a lot of people in trouble in the hood. Sometimes you run your damn mouth so much, you don't know when you close to danger. And sometimes people pull back, not only to save you, but to save their legacy. Anybody want to jump in on that?
Man, I feel him on that. 100%
Yeah, I would.
feel him on that.
I'll jump in on that before I go back to the chat. And
Me
first,
say,
it was great meeting you, gentlemen, this evening. I would say this: us men, we have to learn when to fight these battles and when not. And I would refer to Sun Tzu, the Art of War, because learning when to fight your battles is very, very, very important, and that includes your mental battles, right? Learning how to show mercy on an opponent who you know that if you raise your hand, if you lift up your sword, when it come down, people will be hurt, right? Showing that responsibility is strength. And to me, we need a lot of men like that because situations happen every single day, online, offline, that cause so much trauma, stress, and violence. And if we handle it in a violent way, sometimes like we really want to, it's not going to have the most positive outcome for us or the party on the other side or the people that really support us, right? They're going to have to say, well, you support this kind of behavior, you support this kind of stuff. You don't want that. You want to honor the people that support you at all times. So that's how I look at it. I try to steer away from it as often as possible, while also, you got to be like Mufasa, right? He taught Simba, a lion, a lion can be fearful, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to be a lion. But know that even though I might roar, I might seem strong, it's some stuff that will break me down. Losing my son potentially, right? That was something that would turn him into a monster. So I'm just saying, just therapy, healthy coping mechanisms, prayer, all of these will help. But sometimes just showing mercy is the way to go. That's all I'm gonna say. And thank you, Queen Sheba. Mwah. Fellas, God bless you all.
That was great, King. We received that, and that was beautiful. And thank you, Daryl. Daryl shows up, y'all. If you need somebody to just regulate shit behind the scenes, I'm gonna go Tanga, Daryl Long. You're looking for a PR publicist, personalist. I'm not even trying to diminish what they do. Somebody to run shit in the background, operational function. That's my go-to. But he's also a panelist that can step up and hold his own intellectually, as well as my ladies in the chat. So thank you for what you do. And not only that, let me share something with my channel. When you donate to this channel, first things first, I cover audio equipment, video equipment, and whatever's left, I bless my moderators each month with a surprise cash app. So I don't keep it to myself because this is not my full-time job. This is my tithe and my service to my mission and my purpose. So I give it away so that it comes back to me. And Daryl can attest to that. So thank you, Daryl, and thank all of you. And I'll pass the mic to Tony. I'm sorry. Just really quick, the question that I ask is, has there ever been a situation where you almost got God? A situation where you almost got close to being in some type of bind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've done 3 combat tours. I was a nurse in the Navy. So I've been very close to death on more than one occasion. I was actually wounded. And so when I came home, the funny thing is when I left for my first tour in Iraq, I didn't fear dying. What I feared was coming back not whole. I didn't want to come back without one of my appendages or without my mind. Those are the things that I was scared about losing because I felt like if I died in combat, then that would be the end of my story and that would be it. But if I didn't die, but I was wounded in a way where I could not be whole, then I would have to live out the rest of my life without being whole. And then I would ruin my legacy. because of that, I have a very hair trigger that I had to work out through therapy. And I'm very honest about and very open about the fact that I went through therapy because it literally saved my life. Because when I came back, I did not understand, my brain was still functioning on this fight or flight methodology, or algorithm, if you will. And it didn't help that being from South Park, Houston, Texas, fight was more prevalent than flight. So then you couple that with now being in 3 combat engagements, the flight part isn't even a part of my mechanism. So I'm driving down the freeway, down the street one day with my wife, and we encounter this guy who is a sign swirler, right? And he's got his face painted, and he's playing his sign like it's a guitar. Now, at this point, I'm in corporate America. We're doing well. You know, my wife is a TV producer, so she's, you know, we have a pretty good lifestyle that we're creating for ourselves. And so I say that not to brag, but to set the scene for the answer to the question. Well, at some point, we look over at him and we laugh because he's kind of, you know, doing the buffoon. You know what I mean? He's playing the gesture. It looks like he's trying to bring attention to himself. So we give him what we think he wants, and that's our attention through laughter. Well, he's insulted by that laughter. And he yells out, and this is a white guy, and he yells out a racial slur, the racial slur. So me, again, fight or flight. Flight is not really a part of my my repertoire anymore. So I'm ready to fight. I reach over to unbuckle my seatbelt because I'm about to get out of the car and show him the racial slur that he's asking for. I felt like that was a request, and I'm going to bequeath upon him exactly what he desired. And my wife put her hand on my chest and said, I want you to realize what you're doing before you do it. And if after realizing it, you still want to do it, then I fully support you. You're about to get out of your luxury vehicle, a vehicle that we pay a lot of money for, to beat up a man who is twirling a sign on a street corner because he called you out your name. If you still feel like you feel that's necessary, go ahead. And in that moment, she provided me so much perspective that I would literally have to come to his level. And this is not about socioeconomics. It's more about where we are in life and recognizing who we are and whose we are, right? I've been blessed beyond measure. Not only do I have life in abundance. And I'm about to step off this throne that God has created for me to address someone who is not in my position, who has not been blessed in the way that I have, and literally chastise him for being insulted because I'm me. And so, when we talk about the role of and I know this wasn't the question, and please allow me a little grace. When we talk about the role of men and women in relationships, I don't see the hierarchy, and I can't recognize the hierarchy, because the reality is that at some point, as purposeful as my life is, I realize that there is going to come a point when my wife, because of the career choice, because of what God has put in her, she is going to eclipse me. And I had the very unique opportunity to be on the red carpet with her just recently, where at some point where they're taking, the whole flashing lights from Kanye West, it's just pop, 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 pop. At some point they said, "Sir, if you don't mind stepping to the left, stepping to the right, getting out the picture, because this isn't about you." And so I took my wife's purse. I stood outside of the view of the camera, and I stood there and I held her purse for her, because in that moment I recognized this belonged to her. And this was my opportunity to be her helpmeet, her, support, the person that undergirds her. In the same way she did in that car, reminding me that you are about to descend in order to address an issue that has really nothing to do with you. So so to answer your question, that's when I had to have that moment of clarity and realize where God has taken me to, and know that if I was to voluntarily step down off that throne, then I would have to relinquish whatever God has blessed me with in order to address something that was already beneath me. And again, this is not about that person, but more about that circumstance. I hope that answers the question.
Oh, that does, and I think that's very important. I think you gave a lot of context and texture to that. So I think that's really important, right? A lot of times as women, we wonder. A lot of men are not comfortable with the level of success from a woman, right? For whatever reason, whatever they believe in, it doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make the woman right. It is what you prefer in your relationship. And I think that's why somebody said tonight on a panel, I can't remember who it was, pick the one that's right for you. I think maybe it was Bethel. I don't remember. But that leads me to a different question. I'm going to give to Bethel and R. Jackson. And I'll start with R. Jackson first. When it comes to sustainability of your legacy, what wisdom are you pouring into your family, your children, and your lineage? What do you say to your children? That's a tough one.
In terms of sustainability, yeah. In terms of sustainability, I think the foundation starts with, I think one of the brothers mentioned earlier about accountability. And accountability is such a wide spectrum of accountability, whether it's financial accountability, personal accountability, fiscal. Just you have to be accountable to your responsibilities. You have to be accountable for your actions. There is no one else. No one can answer for your actions, to put it plainly. So in order to really to sustain and to continue on with your legacy, you have to take full accountability for what you achieve and what you failed to achieve. Because it's easy to point the finger of why you haven't made it to a particular status in life or why you haven't achieved a particular goal. But at the end of the day, you are the one that's most accountable for your successes or failure. So do not allow what someone else says or what someone else thinks of you to to determine. Don't let someone else's expectations determine your elevation. Take control of what you have and what you can achieve in life, and and own it. That to me, that's one of the biggest things. Just own what you have, to own what you can, and move forward with it.
Thank you. And we will pass the mic to Bethel. When it comes to pouring into your legacy, we talked about your wife. We talked about the ladies. What are you saying to the children?
Seeing that my children are 11 and 9. Oh, yeah, I'll make sure I'm on. That they're 11 and 9. I try to provide for them the information that I didn't have from my father, because my father wasn't around. And I didn't have a blueprint for it. So everything that I'm doing, it's like, okay, I'm still working. It's a work in progress. I'm still building this thing out. So for my kids, I impart with my kids to Mr. Jackson's point, it's accountability is big for me. I teach my daughter to be accountable for her action, because that's the thing that I noticed. I grew up with women. So it's like, accountability is kryptonite when it comes to them, right? So I teach her early about, baby, being accountable for your action. If you've done something, be accountable to that, okay? Own it. It's okay. It's okay. You get a better outcome when you're honest about that. And for my son, I teach my son what a man is, right? Like, you don't have to. And my son, somebody said it earlier, my son grows up in the suburbs. He don't need to be equipped like me, right? He need to be equipped for the suburbs, right? He don't have to be equipped for the hood in the suburbs. So I teach him what a man is and how he moves. And what's important is his family. What are you doing for your family? What are you leaving for your family? and I impart these 3 things with them. Never be I coulda, I shoulda, I woulda. Do it. Let your actions be so loud that I can't hear what you're saying. And 3, time will tell, right? And all those things go together, right? Time will tell if you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Your action is going to tell me everything, right? And I coulda, I shoulda, I woulda. If you're not doing it, all excuses follow those words. I shoulda did this. I coulda did this. I woulda did this. And excuses follow those. So I teach my kids, don't make excuses for what you do, right? Don't make excuses for what you do. Stand on what you say you're going to do and make it happen. And time will tell exactly what you're going to. It's going to tell everything. It's going to reveal it all to you. So that's going to sustain them. Even when I'm gone, you're going to know, like, did I do it? And I don't want to leave. I told my son, don't tell your son I should have done it. Be the one that done it. So you can tell him I did it. Now you can go forward now.
That's good. I think athletes or former athletes or anybody with an athletic military background, it seems like we have such a structured way of handing down teachings and learnings, but I think it's so necessary in today's world because I think there is no accountability for children. I think they can play, they're not even as active as they used to be. Right. And I can go on and on and on, but that's a completely different topic. But with that being said, for those of you that hung in there, y'all kept it steady tonight. We want to wish you well. And I want to let these men tell you good night before they hop off. Big Lou, anything you want to leave the audience with before you end and hop off?
First off, once again, Queen, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And gentlemen that are left, I mean, it really has been, like I say, powerful for me. My heart is full. It gives me more energy and motivation to continue on changing lives from that perspective. I think one thing to carry away is I was reading something and it was actually by Nick Saban. He said, we're not born winners, we're not born losers, we're born choosers. Let's make sure we're making the right choices in what we do. And that's my biggest thing. Choose to make a difference in somebody's life. Choose to make a difference in your own life because that's where it starts. Bethel, you referenced a lot of great points when you're talking about making excuses. I'm a Kappa man, so I'm not a man of excuses at all. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things, excuses are tools of incompetence. Moments around nothingness. We don't want to deal with that. So at the end of the day, it's one of those things where I feel like anytime you sit up there and you make an excuse, it still comes back to the person that it started with. Everything that you said was, I did this, I did that, I did. Go back to I. As we point the finger, it's always a thumb that's pointing back at the person that's pointing that finger. So my thing is it goes back to clean up what's on your front porch before you try to go step to somebody else's. If your house is clean, guess what? You can go help somebody else clean their house. If not, focus on your own. Get that straight and then move from there. But like I say, it's about family. I appreciate it. Thank you all for the time. Queen Sheba, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you and your family. Thank you. I want to thank Tiffany personally. And we also want to thank your son and your lineage that showed up to back up their father tonight. They didn't know what you were walking into, but guess what? They held the line.
For sure they did.
Beautiful testament to your talking points tonight. Not only do you do it for the teams that you coach, but your family does it for you.
100.
So thank you
so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. R. Jackson, anything you want to leave the audience with? 30 seconds or less.
Oh, wow. Just try to take from whatever you can from anybody on the panel. There's no one way to do anything in life. It's like I gained from this experience myself. So just if you were able to pick something up from this conversation, hold it near and dear and do something positive with it.
Thank you. Last but not least, Bethel Johnson, take us home.
I would say study the greatest book you could study, which is yourself. All right, make yourself the best you can be so you can be the best for other people. So that's the biggest thing you can do is look in the mirror and ask yourself, who are you? So you can start studying that book and perfecting that person so that person can be better for everybody around them.
Y'all did awesome. And let me tell y'all something. This is all of The 3 that are left here, this is their first time making an appearance on YouTube, to my knowledge, at least on my page. And you all did a hell of a job. And with that being said, good night. Thank you all for tuning in. God bless you.
Thank you. Good night.